number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, April 23rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 5 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 3. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Provincial government working on exactly how a paid sick day program would look. Details light for the time being, but many are calling for the burden of the paid sick days not to fall on the individual business owner. Su-Ling Ching is the president and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade and tells City News what she would like to see out of the program.
What we need is for it to be simple and clear and for it to be funded by the government so there's no extra financial burden on businesses.
She also feels this decision is highly overdue since it addresses the inequity in society while also helping reduce transmission of COVID-19. City News Time, 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A gorgeous day for us today. Sun and cloud, a gusty west wind. Our high 16 degrees today. Tonight, mainly clear and 6. And for the weekend, looks good Saturday, sun and cloud up to 19. Periods of light rain for Sunday. For today, the high 16.
And right now in Ottawa, 5 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 3. The last plane for the next 30 days from both India and Pakistan has now landed in our country at Pearson in Toronto. The federal government suspending all commercial and private passenger flights from those countries to control the spread of new variants of COVID-19. The Transport Minister, Omar Al-Ghabra, says the measure is meant to stop travelers coming in from countries where the new strains are rampaging. Al-Ghabra also says the government's response to the pandemic is guided by science and they will not hesitate to add other countries to the prohibited list if science bears that out. The woman at the heart of the sexual misconduct allegation against Canada's former top military commander says retired General Jonathan Vance is the father of 2 of her children, and he has not taken responsibility for them. Major Kelly Brennan says Vance believed that he is above the law and told her, quote, he owns the Canadian Forces National Investigation Service that is conducting a probe into claims against him. She tells the Status of Women Committee she doesn't expect justice will be done in her case, but she would be happy if she forces a culture change at the Canadian Armed Forces. Brennan maintained she had a sexual relationship with Vance, who was her superior officer, that began in 2001 and continued until after he was named defense chief in 2015. City News Time, 9:02. The federal labor minister says the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the need to give workers the ability to avoid work email and text messages outside of business hours. In an interview, Philomena Tassi says the more remote work alongside changing nature of work has created new complications that require more consultation before making a final decision.
People are describing it as they're living at work, so this accelerates this need to look at a right to disconnect.
Now, the idea first came up as a proposed addition to a federal labor code, and that was almost 3 years ago. SpaceX has blasted 4 astronauts into orbit using a recycled rocket and capsule. Reporter Gio Benitez was at the Florida Kennedy Space Center for this morning's historic launch to the International Space Station.
You could feel that energy as it's going up into the air, and of course those incredible sounds. And you know what makes this historic is that they are reusing, SpaceX is reusing that rocket, that Falcon 9 rocket, and the Crew Dragon capsule. So they're able to reuse it.
The Crew capsule should reach the space station early tomorrow morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Friday. We made it. And let me tell you, it was touch and go there for a while. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. What a week. What a week in the news business. Oh, that was a week. I have to say. On Monday, just with all the news on Monday, traffic jams, 10-kilometer backups, I was spent. By the time I got home on Monday, I was spent. I was done for. I was ready. Just take my security pass for the building. Here you go, boss. I'm done. I'm done. I've had a year of this. I'm not coming back tomorrow. I'm done with the COVID and everything. I'm done. I wasn't going to. There was a time I didn't think I was going to make it to Tuesday. But we made it to Friday. And it looks like a nice weekend. And thanks for coming along for the ride, okay? Because all the great Friday fare is with us again this morning. The legendary Lowell Green coming up in just a few minutes' time. Pierre Bourque from Bourque Newswatch. Steve Warne is going to be here talking about the Sens. Man, the Sens are looking good. I'm telling you. I know this season's kind of a write-off, but This is going to be a good hockey team next season, probably. And our MPP panel starts at 11:30. We call it the Queen's Park Weekend Review. We have 3 MPPs on the program this morning. And this is what I'm going to do, David. This is what we're going to do, okay? For the Queen's Park Weekend Review today, starting at 11:30. I am going to say, Doug Ford, discuss. And then we can go home early, okay? We'll just go home.
Just take off after that.
We'll just take off
Peel
after
right
that.
out of here, Burp.
Yeah. Now, as well on the program this morning, golf is closed. Poor David, has so few pleasures in his life, and Doug Ford, the big meanie, has come along and taken away the only one that he has, the game of golf. Okay, we had the head of Golf Ontario on our program yesterday. And he told me the business of golf in Ontario, it's a $3 billion a year industry in Ontario. $3 billion, okay? 100,000 people, employs 100,000 people in Ontario, golf. And that's captured a lot of attention, a lot of news coverage. Golf closed down. The only place in North America where you can't play a round of golf is Ontario. Also closed, not getting nearly as much attention, is tennis. And we have on our program this morning the head of the Ottawa Tennis and Lawn Bowling Club. 1,000 members, largest tennis club in the city, okay? Not for profit. And it's closed, forced to close down because of COVID-19. It would normally be running all kinds of tennis camps for young people. All those camps sold out in days. Registration goes up, boom, sold out. And now they're stuck. The opening day was supposed to be the 17th, and Doug Ford came along and closed it all down. They don't qualify for a wage subsidy or anything. Tennis closed down in Ontario because of COVID-19. And I honestly have no idea if that's the case elsewhere or if that's unique to Ontario. I will ask our guests coming up a little later. One of the top people from the Ornge Air Ambulance Service is going to be on our program this morning. They're busy there at Ornge Air Ambulance, sadly, unfortunately, transferring COVID patients out of the GTA into hospitals in other cities, from Toronto to Ottawa, for example. Lots of people, you may have seen this on social media this week, lots of people spotting the Ornge Air Ambulance helicopters in the skies over the city. More often than ever before. So we're going to get a better idea of what that operation is like these days. I'm very much looking forward to that. And it's Friday. So that means it's the Friday free for all during the Talk Back Hour. That is our favorite hour of the week around here. It's wide open, okay, on topics. I don't pick the topics. You come up with a topic, okay? And then we open up the phone lines. Let me tell you, it's an adventure in talk radio. It's a lot of fun. You just never know what's going to happen when you say, line 4. You just never know. We prefer it if it's in the news, but it doesn't have to be, newsworthy. We'll do our best to roll with it. We do it every morning, the Talk Back Hour, between 10 and 11 o'clock, 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Email address, therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. When you think about this week in news, there have really been 2 big news stories to me all week. Doug Ford. You just file it under that. Doug Ford. And his moves and his reversals and his orders and his apologies with this third wave rampaging through the province. And his handling of the situation in Ontario, kind of like Trudeau last week, it is not going unnoticed in the international media now. Longtime listeners will know that I really like the Drudge Report. I look at the Drudge Report every morning. I have been doing that for 20 years. Really like Matt Drudge. And Doug Ford's handling of the pandemic made it to the Drudge Report this morning, linking through to a story from the Reuters news service that is sure to go worldwide. Headline at Drudge this morning: Canada's Ontario grapples with third wave. Blame piled on Premier. And, Doug Ford, do we have the audio of Doug Ford? Yeah. Doug Ford did the mea culpa yesterday, saying he's sorry that they went too far.
These decisions, they left a lot of people very concerned. In fact, they left a lot of people angry and upset. I know we got it wrong. I know we made a mistake. And for that, I'm sorry, and I sincerely apologize.
Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. Gosh, he looked tired yesterday, didn't he? In the backyard of that Etobicoke home. He looked, honestly, he looked like someone who hadn't been sleeping very well. You know, some of his critics will say, I don't know how Doug Ford sleeps at night. I don't think he's sleeping very much at night. Honestly, I don't think he is. And you heard him. He said he's sorry. But for a lot of people, especially some columnists in the media, the reaction to his apology has been, well, take your apology and stick it you know where. Some of the media commentary this morning, I mean, it's quite over the top, actually. And take it from me, I know what over-the-top media commentary sounds like and looks like, okay? But one of the quotes from one of the columnists in one of the papers this morning is this. Listen to this, okay? Ontario's civil society has completely broken down. This is in the Globe and Mail newspaper this morning. Ontario's civil society has completely broken down. Really? Really? Because, look, I know it's bad. I know it's been bad. I know it's not going well. Believe me, I know. I spend my entire working day on nothing but this. Been that way for me for more than a year. But come on, civil society has completely broken down? I mean, it's bad. Sure, it's bad. It's not dystopia. Okay? It's not Mad Max. Let's get a grip here. So, yeah, Doug Ford, one of the big news stories of the week. And then there's Trudeau in the airports. Well, what do you even say about this? No, we're not going to do it. No, we're not going to do it. No, we're not going to do it. No, it's not a problem. No, it's not. You're making a mountain. Suspended, grounded flights from India. But I'm not sure all of these hours later if this really is a ban on flights from India and Pakistan, by the way. Is it just direct flights? Because I see that in a lot of the news coverage. We're banning direct flights. Direct flights. Because, let's face it, if that's the case, it's not really a ban at all. Because a lot of passengers who fly from India to Canada, say from Delhi to Toronto, popular route. Air Canada has a direct flight, Delhi to India, 3 days a week. Direct flight. So that flight would be banned. But for a lot of people who fly from India to Canada have stopovers and make connecting flights. They stop in very busy hub airports like Doha, like Frankfurt, like Dubai. So I'm just wondering, is it just the direct flights that are suspended? What about a flight from Dubai to Toronto? Is that grounded now if it has people from India on it? What's the plan here? I don't know. I'm open to any answers that you have always on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
So the Birth of Absinthe was 2002, I think, 2003, and I was working at Urban Bistro, happily, where Allium is now. And then the space where Holland Cafe was came up. It's on the corner of Spencer and Holland. And I spoke to the landlord, and there's a lot of interest from a lot of other people, but he and I just, got along super well, and he put a lot of faith in me. So Carmen Turner is his name. He gave me the lease to the place and really pretty much gave me all the equipment in the place. I was really lucky. I've been really lucky with landlords that way, actually, both my current landlord and Carmen Turner. Because if there hadn't been Carmen Turner, there wouldn't have been Absinthe. So we were there for a few years and just sort of outgrew the place. And then now we're here. It's obviously been tough, and it's been tough for everyone. I mean, that's been the big democratic sweep of in restaurants and the hospitality and the arts that we were talking about earlier. It's like everybody's been impacted pretty much the same. From everybody that I talked to, we're down 80%. We're climbing out now. I think one of the saddest things is everybody, we went down to 2 employees from 25. And we're now at 4, and we're bringing 2 new people on this week, so we'll be at 6. So it's little steps. So it's been tough. It's I've got the most expensive clubhouse ever here, because some days you come and you don't do any business, but you're here. But I'm grateful for what I do have. I think everybody's optimistic now, not necessarily just about the vaccine, but about the vaccine, spring, being able to be outside. I think you're going to see a lot of pop-up things happen in parking lots and on sidewalks and like that, rather than being actually inside somebody's commerce. I think we'd like to take it outside. I know my staff would. My staff like the outdoors now, all of a sudden, all 4 of us. 6 soon. We'll be doing some business in the patio in the parking lot, and we have a patio out front. And I think I hope other restaurants and stores will do the same. I hope that they take advantage of the sidewalk and doing sort of, guerrilla marketing and stuff like that, and really shaking it up a bit. You can find us at Absinthe Cafe at 1208 Wellington Street West in Hintonburg. And you can find us online at absinthecafe.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Morning, Lowell Green.
Morning, Rob Snow. It's almost humorous, although it's not very funny, how suddenly Doug Ford is the bad guy with everything that's gone on around here. Second wave, third wave, and so forth. Doug Ford is now the bad guy. He made some mistakes. He's admitted it. He's apologized, which, by the way, I haven't heard an apology from any other politician in this godforsaken country in a long time. But at any rate, he made some mistakes. Apparently, the 2 mistakes that are really, really nailing him to the wall here is he closed playgrounds, and he said that police were going to stop you on the streets or wherever the hell to check to see where you're going. These apparently are the 2 major mistakes.
Well, the paid sick days is...
Well, he's going to institute paid sick days. I mean, that's, but as far as I can see, I don't think any of those decisions, including closing the golf courses, by the way, I don't think they have cost any lives. On the other hand, some of the actions taken or not taken by Trudeau, Tam, et cetera, have cost thousands of lives, and I'm not exaggerating. Don't forget, it was Ms. Tam who early in the game here told us that we didn't need to wear masks, that we shouldn't be wearing masks. It was Trudeau who very, very early in the game said he wasn't going to close down the borders to China, et cetera. As a consequence, we have the variants of the mutations rampaging through our province, and apparently this is all Doug Ford's problem. Listen, there's only one problem here, and two numbers that I'm going to give you spell it out very graphically. This is the problem. The numbers are 70 and 97. Now you ask, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
70% of us Canadians have not received one single vaccination shot. 70%. They keep talking about, 30% have been vaccinated. Right. We're now in the 5th month, Rob Snow. 70% of us have not as yet had one single freaking shot. Now the 97 figure. 97% of all Canadians are not fully vaccinated as we enter the 5th month of vaccination. 97% of us are not fully vaccinated. We have not had both shots. 70% haven't had one single shot. 97% are not fully vaccinated. Here we are in the 5th month. That's the problem. If we had plenty of vaccines, if we were rolling out vaccines like they're doing in the UK or Chile or even Brazil or even in India, for God's sake, or the United States, we wouldn't have these problems. We wouldn't even be talking about shutdowns. We would be talking, as they are in the United States, Israel, etc., we would be talking about opening up.
Okay.
70% of us.
I should say today, just on vaccinations and obviously Mr. Trudeau's record on vaccinations. Mr. Trudeau will be doing his media availability today with the Public Services and Procurement Minister, Anita Anand. That is scheduled to take place from 11:45 to 12:45 today. And then the motorcade will fire up, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, accompanied by Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, will go to a hospital somewhere in Ottawa to receive their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Trudeau vaccinated today.
Good for them. I hope that they don't run out of AZ vaccine before they arrive, because right around the country we are running out, and apparently there are no new supplies coming in. That delivery, along with Moderna deliveries, once again delayed. Rob, we keep hearing about all of this great vaccine rollout. You and I have been talking about this now for over a month. The vaccine rollout. If you read the media, listen to the media, etc., you get the idea, holy geez, they're vaccinating everybody in this country. 70% of Canadians have not had a single shot. 97% of us are not fully vaccinated. And I have to tell you this, I am one of those who has to wait 4 months for my second shot. I have no idea, nor do the damn scientists and the health experts. None of them can tell me if there will be any effectiveness left by the time my second shot rolls around on July 14th. And Doug Ford is the bad guy? Now let's talk about the airports.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the airport. You raise a very good point. Exactly who does this cover? I don't know how many times I have heard it said by Trudeau and others, we've shut down the borders. They never shut down the borders.
Oh, we had the most strict border controls in the world.
It was an outrageous, blatant, barefaced lie. My wife and I experienced, and I've talked about it many times. When we came back from the Bahamas, they were unloading a plane load from India at that time. And there was no screening, nothing done. This is at the end of March, okay? So it's all a big, giant lie. And you're right. You ask a good question. Now, does this so-called ban from India, Pakistan, does it apply only to direct flight? Who the hell knows? They probably never thought about it. Oh yeah, that's right. A lot of people, you're right, they fly out of Frankfurt. So it's that's a major airport. So if you fly from Delhi to Frankfurt and then fly over, apparently you can. That's all you have to do. You want to come to Canada, just to get a flight, go to Frankfurt and come across.
Yeah,
no problem.
Well, I was looking. I mean, it's pretty easy to look up because the news coverage says direct flights. banning direct flights from India and Pakistan. So I just Googled Delhi to Toronto flights on Google, and they pop up. Now, for $1,800, this was before the ban came into effect, for $1,800, you can get the Air Canada direct flight. Delhi to Toronto, Delhi to Pearson, right? Or you can spend $1,200 and have a 3.5-hour layover in Dubai, right? Okay. So you're going to save $500, $600. Well, who's not going to do that, right? Plus, now, I guess, if it's only direct flights, and I'm open to being corrected on that, if they're only banning direct flights, well, then you're not on a flight from India. You're on a flight from Dubai.
Precisely.
Right?
And they know this. You know, they know this. Just,
so are they pulling a fast one? Or?
Let me just point something out. Trudeau and others are claiming, well, we've allowed all... And by the way, I mean, Brazil is having a terrible time as well. I mean, we've got mutants running wild in Brazil, and very soon they're going to be running wild in Canada. As a matter of fact, the number one problem in BC right now is the so-called Brazilian mutant. Over 2,000 people in BC are now have this mutation coming out of Brazil. Why? There are direct flights from Brazil. There's still direct flights from Brazil and other countries that are having a terrible time as well. So, but we keep hearing, well, don't worry about it. The screening, the quarantine program is wonderful. Hey, wait a minute. If the quarantine program and the screening was so wonderful, how come the mutations are taking over in this province? They didn't occur here. The vaccine. I'm sorry. The virus didn't mutate in Canada. It mutated in the UK, South America, Brazil, South Africa, etc. That's where. So it came here. It was imported. In fact, all of the viruses were imported. Most of them, I would say, suggest 99% probably at our airports. So when they say, well, the screening is great, well, excuse me, if it's so great, how come these things are spreading like wildfire? This is what's destroying or helping to destroy, according to the writer, the civil society in Ontario. It's not Doug Ford. Doug Ford shut down playgrounds, shut down golf courses. That's not what's destroying the province. It's the fact that nobody's getting vaccinated. We've got Trudeau. How many times, and you've talked about this again, Rob, how many times did he promise more vaccines ordered per capita than any other nation
you get vaccinated 5 times. You'd be vaccinated 5 times.
Where the hell are they? Yeah. He promised an ocean of vaccine. What we've got here instead is the Carp Creek. You ever see the Carp Creek?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's just a little trickle.
Yes,
that's what we're getting here. Right. And in fact, the trickle is even being cut back. But through it all, Trudeau, he skates absolutely free. Why? Well, because we've got another scapegoat here. Hey, we've got Doug Ford to pick on. Doug Ford's made some, you're right, he looked very haggard. I mean, what are you supposed to do? He promises people that, that you're going to have an appointment here. The vaccines don't come in, so they got to cancel the appointments. Who gets the blame? Doug Ford. And by the way, a number of people, including some of the media, who are very critical about his idea that cops would stop people on the roads and check where you're going. These are the same people who are now advocating that we stop interprovincial travel. Well, if you stop interprovincial travel, who the hell's going to have to check? The cops are going to be out there checking your car. So these same journalists who said it's terrible that cops would be, stopping cars, are suggesting that cops stop cars to check where you're coming from. I mean, but you see, we've got a scapegoat, right? You can't. There's no way that we could blame Trudeau.
Well, yeah.
The fact that only 3% or less than 3% of us are fully vaccinated, that's not relevant. The fact that 70% don't have any shots, that's not relevant. That is the problem.
All right.
That's the problem.
Gotta go.
Good morning.
Thank you, Lowell Green. The news is coming up, and then Pierre Bourque from Bourque Newswatch on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, April 23rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 6 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 5. And here's what's making news this hour. Those who are pregnant can now book through the provincial call centre or through local public health units for their COVID vaccine. The province says this change is in light of new information showing women who are pregnant are at a higher risk of severe illness. The health minister's office says those pregnant are now considered among those with the highest need for a COVID vaccine. As the country deals with variants of concern, add another to the list: Britain, Brazil, South Africa, and now the India variant. The last two flights from India and Pakistan that took off before a 30-day ban on flights from those countries into Canada took effect did land this morning at Toronto's Pearson Airport. How bad is it in India? Yesterday, they had a record 314,000 new COVID infections. Today, above that number. The country reporting more than 332,000 new cases of COVID-19 today, along with 2,200 more deaths. We'll get a better idea of where the COVID infection rate is going nationally. The numbers this morning, the modeling numbers, are expected to be released in the next hour. And then just before noon, the Prime Minister will hold his regular COVID update before going for his COVID vaccine himself. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Back in Bourque with Pierre Bourque from Bourque Newswatch. Good morning.
Rob, good morning. It looks like barbecue weather this weekend.
Oh, it's great looking weekend. Great looking weekend, and don't we deserve it after this weekend news, my friend?
That's for sure.
What do you think is the big story of the week? What's the biggest story of the week, do you think?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that there's a particular one. I'm going to suggest it's certainly not climate. In so much as the world leaders in the past 24, 48 hours, including today, have been on this summit about climate and talking about aspirations. It's always a mañana thing. It's like, hey, we aspire to do this, and aren't we great? And let's be smug about how we're gonna aspire to do this, that, and the other thing. But it never plays itself out. It's just like it's like a distraction in a way, at a time, particularly here in Canada, when we're really having trouble with the vaccines. And to me, the vaccines remain the primary story. And beyond that, more importantly, the actual infections coming in from outside and spreading across the country. To me, that I think has to be the big story for everybody, because it impacts the economy, it impacts schooling, it impacts families, it impacts mental health, it impacts the health system. I mean, it could go on and on and on. How can it not be the main story?
Okay. You have a story on your website. Well, that's a heck of a picture at Bourque.com this morning of Omar El Gabra, Liberal cabinet minister, replaced Mr. Garneau as the Minister of Transport in the latest cabinet shuffle. And this was Mr. El Gabra yesterday.
We must avoid the risk of falling into the trap of blaming an identifiable group for causing COVID. We've seen this with Asian Canadians. We must reject scapegoating any group. This virus is not Chinese, nor is it Indian. It affects us all. Let's stick together to get through this pandemic, and our communities and our country will be stronger for it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. We should denounce racism. We should also denounce, I think, Johnny-come-lately public policy that is as plain as the nose on your face. The situation at the airports not making a lot of sense to a lot of people. What did you think about the announcement finally yesterday, Pierre?
Well, I don't really think this guy's the brightest bulb in the pack. He's a Trudeau maximalist and a long-time supporter, so he's got his just rewards. And Marc Garneau's gone on to greater glory as Foreign Affairs Minister, and not a bad gig if you're an astronaut. But in the case of this here, I think all government has been asleep when it comes to the border. We've issued pablum statements about how the border is intact and the integrity and the systems of checking. Meanwhile, all of these variants have been flowing in, like we're a leaky sieve. And so I don't know that what they did yesterday, it's certainly better than nothing. You know, when you have daily flights coming in from New Delhi, you've got daily flights coming in from Dubai, and as you pointed out a few moments ago, easy peasy, fly in from India via Dubai. You can still do that today. You can still do that tomorrow. You can fly via Frankfurt, Amsterdam, London, Paris, any other way station from India and other hotspots. And presumably from Brazil, you can come in through Miami. You can come in from Los Angeles. You can come in through Dallas. Not a problem. Not a problem, but it is a problem if you're in Canada trying to fight these variants, which are filling up the hospitals and are really creating a massive demand on our health system. That aside, from a humanitarian perspective, I look at what's happening in India and the fact that the COVID infection rates are going through the roof, number of deaths are going through the roof. Hospitals are absolutely full and closed. They're not taking new patients. Doesn't matter how deadly you are or how deathly you look when you get to the door. And, you know, the biggest problem over there, I hope it's not a harbinger for other places, but they've run out of oxygen.
Yeah, medical oxygen. I was reading one of the stories yesterday, I believe may have been Times of India, that deliveries of, say, oxygen tanks, for example, they need a police escort now because they're getting looted.
Yeah, well, now they just don't have enough of it. Like, where does that come from? Who manufactures medical oxygen?
Yeah.
That is I think there's going to be a run on that.
Right. But it's just how, it's a government at times, and maybe you can say the same thing about the Ford government. You know, the government at times just seems to be in, I don't know, Pierre, like a state of denial or something.
Rob, you've been in Ottawa long enough to have seen a lot of politicians come and go, right? And when they're on the way in, their eyes are open, their ears are open, their mind is open. Once they get to a degree of power, they start to listen more to themselves than anyone else. And particularly, they tune out those who have a differing opinion. And so they surround themselves, whether you're Harper and his boys with short pants or Trudeau and his inner circle, you start listening to your echo chamber. And that's it. That's all it is. You've got a lot of people surrounding these people in power who simply are just happy to be there. And they feel if they give the boss the message that the boss wants to hear, it's much easier for your longevity in the position. And so they become insulated. They become both distracted and disentangled from the public life. And I think that's a big problem.
Okay. Again, we're going to play the clip here. The Premier of Ontario yesterday.
These decisions, they left a lot of people very concerned. In fact, they left a lot of people angry and upset. I know we got it wrong. I know we made a mistake. And for that, I'm sorry, and I sincerely apologize.
Okay, that was, obviously, that's the Premier of Ontario yesterday. I'm sorry, Pierre. What did you think of that?
I think he was genuine. You could see it in his body language. You could hear it in the tremor in his voice. Clearly, the guy is apologetic and is feeling it to the bone. There's a guy who's living and breathing the problems of Ontario each and every minute of every hour of the day.
Yeah. Lowell said, I don't know if you watched it, but Lowell said he looked haggard, and I said he looks like he hasn't been sleeping very well. I don't know. Did you see any of it, or?
And I think he, by his own admission during some of these daily dugs, he said he's been having calls with people up till midnight, and he's an early riser, so that doesn't leave a lot of sleep, especially if you're tossing and turning during your night hours because of the problems that are going through your brain. Well, I think one of the biggest problems that he's had is that his own office has been a disaster.
How so? What do you mean?
The decisions that have outflowed from it. And now there's a lot of finger pointing. Now there's talk of a potential cabinet shuffle. They've they've thrown, I don't know if they've thrown out, but they certainly changed the people that have been involved deeply in the communications emanating from the Premier's office through government out to the population, because the population's tuned them out. But it's been a problem all along for them, is that their messaging has been not hardwired. It's been a tangled message, and people are not listening. And the numbers have been proving it. Although I will say, and Rob, we've got a graph. You were talking about the Omar algebra picture on our site. Certainly well worth watching, well worth taking a look at Bourque.com. But we also have just opposite it, the daily COVID chart. And you'll see that the past 2 or 3 days, we've actually flattened. Now, we're flattened at the highest point, but at least we've flattened it. Let's hope we're starting to go down, and that's worth taking a look at it and acknowledging as well.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting, though, just the political optics of it all. And you have to give kudos, I guess, to Team Trudeau, okay? Just think about this. There's Ford. He's front and center, right? Yeah, okay, he was kind of out of the spotlight, isolating. Was he isolating? Was he in hiding? Whatever. But he's in the backyard. That should be the backdrop now for all the Daily Dougs, the backyard in Etobicoke. It looks very zen. But he's front and center. He's, taking the heat, taking the pounding, taking the grilling from the Queen's Park Press Gallery. When it comes time to announce the ban on flights, you notice it's not Trudeau making the announcement. It's not Trudeau saying, sorry, I, messed up. I should have banned these flights weeks ago, if not months ago, or maybe this time last year. It's the cabinet minister doing it. Right? It's the cabinet minister who's on Power and Politics and Power Play and taking the grilling and taking the beating from the news media, right? If Trudeau's going to backtrack, he's backtracking all the way back to the point you can't see or hear him. Like he's out of mind, out of sight, Pierre, It's very, politically, it's slick. It's slick because and I mean that in the diabolical sense of the word.
Well, look, that's his father's MO. That was Jean Chrétien's MO. Let somebody else deliver the bad news. And in a way, if you look at the budget that was delivered, and isn't it interesting, nobody's really talking about the budget. No. That was such a ridiculous document with, drunken sailor spending promises that, of course, we're never going to see one way or the other. But, it's Chrystia Freeland carrying the bag for that one. So whatever blowback will come along at some point, and there sure will be. She'll be the one who is going to be holding that. In the same way that Paul Martin held it for Jean Chrétien. And when Paul Martin finally became prime minister, he was not really there that long. At some point, the chickens flew out of the coupe de carpe and landed on Paul Martin's lap, and that was the end of that. So
for a long time, I've said one of my favorite links at Bourque.com, and it's been there since day one at Bourque.com. Top 100 CDs.
Yes.
Top one. You have a link on your website that says top 100 CDs. I still get a kick out of that. Just because of the era that we're in now, right? The Spotify podcast era, the idea that we have to have a list of top. But anyway, it links through to Amazon bestsellers in music. So get a load of this. Rumors. Okay. Rumors. What else is on here? Thriller is on here. There's a few more here to really... Led Zeppelin 4 remastered. Animals by Pink Floyd. And this. Okay. Yeah.
Number 16 with a bullet.
Nirvana. Bob Marley. But the thing is, they're not on CD, all on vinyl. All on vinyl. That's what's moving at Amazon. Vinyl, vinyl. Do you even have a record player? I don't even own a record player.
I do, in a box somewhere.
In a box somewhere, right? I guess it's making a big comeback. And what people want, I guess, is to replenish their record collections, like Thriller on vinyl. My goodness gracious.
Yeah, and
like once wasn't enough.
Elton John's Diamonds is listed as number 22 here. It's an LP record at $40.
Yeah.
$40.
Yeah, $40. Yeah, so that's really, Batted to Hell, Paul McCartney 3, lots of, all on vinyl. That's what's selling these days in music. If it's on vinyl and it's classic rock, that's what people want to buy right now. Hey, look, have a great weekend.
Same to you, Rob.
Okay, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care.
Bourque of Bourque Newswatch. This is the Rob Snow Show on the City News.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa, and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Center. We've been here for about 2 years, and it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit. But people I think know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time, they make an appointment, they stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's cornflakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything, and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It is not just golf that has fallen victim to the COVID restrictions from the Ontario government. It is also the great game of tennis. And Maria Pierre-Noel joins me now, Executive Director of the Ottawa Tennis and Lawn Bowling Club. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure. How surprised were you at the news? You're not allowed to play tennis.
Well, in our particular case, it was very special because on Friday, April 16, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I sent a notice to our members that we were pleased to announce our earliest opening in many years, which was planned for the day after. On Saturday, after the announcement, we were supposed to open our tennis courts. So we were disappointed. Making the decision of opening while we were listening to the updates and the COVID numbers was not an easy decision, but I was very confident that the protocols and all the procedures that we have in place were sufficient to open with confidence that we will not be aggravating any community spread. So we were disappointed for sure.
What was the situation last year? Was your club operating last year?
Yes.
When the weather was warm and whatnot?
Yes. Yes. So last year we had a little bit of a delay in the spring.
Okay.
And but we ended up opening. We adjusted all our procedures. Of course, we pivoted and got our court online booking system. We also have an outdoor pool, and we also had that ability to book times at the pool online. We closed our clubhouse. We have a beautiful 100-year-old clubhouse, but we built a temporary front desk for our staff outside. All our procedures were implemented in a touchless environment. It worked. It worked really well. Our members were extremely happy and very pleased to have the opportunity to exercise. As you know, tennis is not only a good exercise for the physical activity, but it is a sport that promotes social interaction, and our club is very much a community. So, we were able to run as close as we could to a normal season with, of course, our volume was scaled back.
Right.
But we didn't have any case, which I know that is the situation and the case for many of the tennis clubs, not only in the city, but in the province. So we were very proud, I believe, as a tennis community of the accomplishments that we had last year in terms of contributing to the health, physical and mental health of our communities.
If I could just jump in there, you say you were preparing and putting measures into place because the last thing you want is people playing tennis and getting sick, right? Or congregating around a clubhouse or whatever. So talk a little bit about how you wanted to make sure that your members were safe. You're the largest tennis club in the city, right? You have about 1,000 members or so.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We have 18 tennis courts. So again, we implemented an online system so all our members could book their court at home.
Right.
And then show with an appointment. So that diminished or decreased the volume and any lineup. And then we had different access for different banks of court setting that we have. There was distancing, footprinting, marks, all kinds of signage. We obviously invested in plexiglass for our staff.
Sure.
Lots of hand sanitizer. So we had a very good system.
Yeah. How much money would you say you spent on stuff like that? Tens of thousands?
Absolutely. Tens of thousands. Absolutely. And, in preparation for this year, we even spent a lot more, to be able to improve the setting that we have, not in terms of policies, but physically. So to give you an example, our outdoor pool, we were trying to provide specific areas for members to be with their families, and we had tents. So the tents, we're by the river and by Brewer Park, so the wind is quite strong.
Yeah.
And then, we had tents flying. So we knew that we needed to invest a little bit more in a setting that is more permanent and more safety from that perspective. So, the investments continue. As I believe the new normal will stay. It's quite different than what we know.
Tell me about the situation with your summer camps, because as I understand it, they were enormously popular this year, sold out in record time. Tell me about that, please.
Yeah, so our camps in a pre-pandemic environment, we have about 700 kids. We have 60 to 70 kids over 10 weeks. in the summer. They're very popular. Last year we run only 20 kids per week, and again, because we learn about procedures and our ability to accommodate more, we open a little bit more capacity. We normally sell our camps within 3 to 4 months, and this year we sold all our 10 weeks in 2 days.
In 2 days?
In 2 days. And I'm a mom. I want my kids to go out and move.
Sure.
And so I knew the demand would be there.
Yeah.
We disappointed a lot of people last year. We had to limit our memberships in our pool. We had to obviously turn down a lot of registrations in all our programs last year. So the demand is there. We want to move, and we've heard over and over again that outdoors is a lot safer. And that, physical activity is so important, not only, for the physical benefits, but the mental health benefits.
Okay. I have to ask you, because I just want to end it on a lighter note, okay?
Yes, of course.
Lawn bowling. Do people still play lawn bowling?
Unfortunately, 10 years ago, we had to retire our lawn bowling
Oh, you
green.
did? Okay, all right.
Yes, we have now 12 beach volleyball courts.
Oh, you replaced the lawn bowling with the beach volleyball. I see.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
all
so
right.
it's very busy. We rent our courts to a sports organization in the city, and we have our own beach volleyball programming.
Yeah.
And but
lawn bowling's a pretty good game. It's kind of like summer curling, so.
Absolutely, and you know what? I think it's coming back. And
really? Okay.
We hold a lot. We have also a restaurant, and we hold a lot of corporate events.
Yeah.
And we have our bocce sets, and we have 5 acres, so we are able to accommodate some bocce in our lawn. So you never know. It's coming back.
Look, I wish your organization the best, and I really hope you can get open sooner rather than later, and that the situation is improved soon.
And we do hope so for our community and our health.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Maria Pierre-Noel is the executive director of the Ottawa Tennis and Lawn Bowling Club, but they don't do lawn bowling anymore. This, who knew? This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, April 23rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 6 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 5. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The national COVID modeling numbers are due out in just the next few minutes. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with that story.
Canada's Chief Medical Health Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam, is set to unveil the latest COVID-19 projections. In the last modeling in March, officials warned if stronger measures weren't in place, the country could hit up to 12,000 cases a day by the end of April. Since then, provinces have put in place stronger measures, and last week the daily average was around 7,500. We'll see if these recent lockdowns will have the intended impact of lowering the spread during this third wave. Meanwhile, later today, the Prime Minister will hold an update on federal COVID efforts shortly before he heads to a pharmacy with his wife Sophie to receive their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Trudeau always said he would wait his turn, and now he's eligible for that vaccine. Speaking of AstraZeneca, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization will update its guidance on the shot. It's still advising it for people 55 and up due to blood clot concerns, but Health Canada has approved it for all adults, and several provinces have already lowered the minimum age to 40. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Now, the big concern right now with COVID-19 is variants that originate in India, the country reporting a global record for daily COVID-19 infections now for a second straight day. India reporting more than 332,000 new cases just today alone and more than 2,200 new deaths. Oxygen continues to be in short supply. Hospitals taking to social media pleading with the government to replenish their reserves. Now, the last plane for 30 days from both India and Pakistan has now landed at Toronto's Pearson Airport. These last flights did leave just before the ban that was announced yesterday by the federal government here took effect. So those planes in the air were allowed to land at Pearson. People on board, of course, are going through COVID protocols right now. City News time 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A gorgeous day for us today. Sun and cloud, a gusty west wind. Our high 16 degrees today. Tonight mainly clear and 6. And for the weekend, looks good Saturday. Sun and cloud up to 19. Periods of light rain for Sunday. For today, the high 16.
And right now, 6 degrees in Ottawa. It's 5 degrees in Smiths Falls. While details still remain light from the provincial government's paid sick day program, many advocates are weighing in on the announcement yesterday and what it will mean for the province. Su-Ling Ching is president and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade and tells City News this morning implementing paid sick days is long overdue.
It addresses the inequity in our system. People who are able to work from home have not had to worry about this in the same way, and it is a key opportunity for us to reduce the transmission.
Now, she adds the Ontario government needs to ensure a paid sick day program is simple, clear, and provincially funded to ensure there is no extra burden on already struggling businesses. City News time at 10:03. The clock is ticking for a submarine and its crew. It went missing near the resort island of Bali. 53, make that 53 sailors are on board. Reporter Inez de la Cuatera says the sub is believed to have just hours of oxygen left.
Indonesian Navy ships still frantically searching the waters off Bali in a race against time. The submarine went missing after its last reported dive on Wednesday, and concern is growing that it may have sunk too deep to recover. The Navy chief saying the submarine was expected to run out of oxygen by around 3 a.m. Saturday. A number of neighboring countries have been helping.
Now, the cause of the sub's disappearance remains uncertain. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Do you accept Doug Ford's apology? What do you think about the suspension of flights from India and Pakistan? Announced by the Transport Minister. Notice not the Prime Minister. Yesterday. But it's the Friday free-for-all. That's our favorite hour of the week around here because we don't do the heavy lifting. We don't come up with the topics. We will let you do that. You do the heavy lifting, okay? David and I, we've been at it like morning, noon, and night all week.
I'm tired.
We do our best to play along, okay? Make it sound like we know what we're talking about around here. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. You know, if you're Doug Ford, and I've been tough on the guy. I have, no doubt about it. I think about this line, no good deed goes unpunished. And if you consider an apology to be a good deed, welcome to Ford Nation on a Friday morning. It's been a tough week for Doug Ford because it was a week ago today. He stood in front of the cameras and announced all sorts of new measures that I think he had hoped would contain the spread of COVID-19, get a handle on the third wave, and the backlash was instantaneous to things like closing playgrounds and golf courses and putting police checkpoints on bridges and giving the police sweeping new powers that the police didn't even ask for. And no movement on paid sick days, like a Go It Alone Ontario paid sick day program. So maybe it was a mess of his own making. It's a big mess, no doubt about that. And it's going to take a lot longer than a week to clean it up. But there he was yesterday. David's got the audio for us, back in front of the camera. But he's in isolation, right? So he's at the Ford family compound in Etobicoke, in the backyard. That's the backdrop. And he's looking tired. And he's looking worn down. And he's generally looking defeated. But he said he was sorry. Roll tape.
My friends, I want to address the events of this past week. Last Friday, in response to extremely troubling modeling that told us we could see well over 15,000 cases a day, we moved fast to put in measures in place to reduce mobility. But we moved too fast. And I know that some of those measures, especially around enforcement, they went too far. Simply put, we got it wrong. We made a mistake. These decisions, they left a lot of people very concerned. In fact, they left a lot of people angry and upset. I know we got it wrong. I know we made a mistake. And for that, I'm sorry, and I sincerely apologize.
Okay, so he apologized. But a lot of the commentary class, newspaper columnists, whatnot, not having much of it this morning. I'll read you some of the columns today. But if you listen to that news conference yesterday, we carried most of it live. Man, oh man, that Queen's Park press gallery, that can be a viper's den. You are in enemy territory when you're walking in there as a politician. That's one of the topics out there, but it's wide open because it's the Friday free-for-all. It's been a long week. Let's roll. Diane, good morning. Diane in Stittsville.
Good morning, Rob. Well, I will say that the CTV reporter was despicable. I'll let other people talk on that subject.
All right.
Kids are not fine. Mental illness rooted in pandemic. It was on the front page of the paper. You mentioned it, I think, on Wednesday.
Elizabeth Payne's report yesterday, yeah.
Yes. So anyway, I have
day before yesterday, sorry, yeah.
I have to listen to the union ads on your radio station. I'm glad that they're paying money to...
We welcome their business, believe you me. Yeah, okay, thank God they have the money.
Yeah, they're the secondary school union.
Yeah.
And they're saying 1 in 4 schools shouldn't be open. Well, that's not what Dr. Etches says. Dr. Etches says that most Ottawa schools, maybe 1 in 4 schools in Peel and Toronto need to be closed, but not in Ottawa. So high school, because this ad is for secondary school. High school, last quadmester, my granddaughter, grade 10, 13 in her math class, 15 in her English class. She always stays in the same room in the morning and in the afternoon. The teacher comes in. They just go in that room with their backpacks and then go home. She sometimes even goes home for lunch. So why can these students not at noon hour and at the end of the day get a wipe and wipe down their desks and help the custodians?
Oh, okay.
You know?
Good question. Yeah.
They need to be back in school, all of them. If you're 4 years old, that's the other point I forgot to tell you. They have not closed any school in BC as of Wednesday. I talked to my daughter. None of the schools have been closed. They do not have junior kindergarten, so they're saving all that money. So that's my talk with you today, Rob.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Diane.
Rob.
Yeah, good
Bye.
call. Let's go to Jordan in Canada. Good morning, Jordan.
Good morning. Hey, first-time caller.
Appreciate that. Jordan, what's prompted the discussion today?
So your previous caller touched on it, but that message given out by that teachers union calling for, saying that 1 out of 4 schools has COVID symptoms or whatever, and, half measures don't work. And then you also have the advisory board for health saying, we need tighter restrictions, and Doug Ford, implements restrictions and also, gives police the powers, even though they're to pull over, right? Well, you could say that that's not a half measure, that's a full measure, but you have people backlashing against that. Well, what do you want? But
Okay. Can't win for losing, you're saying.
Exactly. Like that's not a half measure, bringing in police, and but people are backlashing. Well, you can't have it both ways. You want restrictions, but you're not prepared to give up your freedom for it. So,
well, let me ask you this. Doug Ford, he apologized on national television yesterday.
Yep.
Okay. You won't find too many politicians that will say stuff like that. I messed up. I screwed up. I'm sorry. It was a mistake. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. We went too far, made a mistake. I mean, do you accept that apology?
I accept the apology. I don't think he should have had to apologize for...
You don't think he should have even apologized?
Well, I do believe he made mistakes, but I don't think he should have apologized for walking or bringing in the police powers. People are calling him, bring tighter restrictions. Well, if those restrictions aren't enforced, what good are they?
Okay. Gotcha, Jordan. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you. 750-1310, 750-1310, Friday Free for All Talk Back Hour on the Rob Snow Show. Pembroke. Darlene. Good morning, Darlene.
Oh, good morning, Rob.
Hi, Darlene.
Yeah, I just heard on the news that a witness had come forward concerning General Vance and how he said that he actually owns the National Investigation Service.
That's right. He owns them, yeah. That's according to testimony from this witness, right?
Well, there's according to the news and what she said, that she has it on tape.
Right.
Now, I don't know how legal that is, but it's pretty disgusting to think that he stands up there and says, well, we have Canadians' backs.
Again, these are her claims, okay? They haven't been tested or anything like that. It's her testimony before a parliamentary committee. And they are explosive allegations. I mean, there's that one. There's the fact of 2 children, the allegation that he doesn't pay any child support. I mean, a lot of stuff in there in that testimony that makes you think, like, wow, this person was in charge of the Canadian Armed Forces, the entire Canadian Armed Forces.
But then you can understand why the cover-up and why they don't want anything getting out as far as Trudeau and his caucus.
Well, it certainly raises a lot of questions, doesn't it? It certainly does. Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
Yes.
And I have one question. Yeah. It's about, I also heard Trudeau will be getting his AstraZeneca vaccine.
Trudeau and Justin and Sophie today. Yes.
Yes. Now, the thing is, he had been saying how he's hoping to be able to attend the G7 in the UK in June.
Right.
But now, unless NACI has changed things, don't you have to wait 4 months for your next injection to be totally vaccinated?
Well, for the vaccine to be most effective, yes.
Well,
you need the booster shot. Yes.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering.
Well, I don't know. And will that event be even held in person? Let's wait and see. Let's get through May before we talk about June. My goodness. Thank you, Darlene.
Yeah.
Got to run. Thank you.
Right.
You raised some good points, so thank you. It's a talkback hour. That's how we roll during the Friday free-for-all on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It started out with a small outdoor booth in what was called Artist Alley, which is actually the area just outside our store on William Street, where for a couple of years we sold our jewelry directly on the street. And then we slowly evolved to having an indoor location in this building, 55 Borrowed Market Square. We then moved to another location in Place de Ville, and then moved back down here on Dalhousie Street at Irrigere in the 90s. And then back into this building again in 2000 as a collection. I do a collection of jewelry called Cirque that's mainly beaded work with a combination of semi-precious and vintage beads. And then she does a hat collection called Fanfreluche that's all cut and sewn hats in a variety of fabrics and for all of the seasons of the year. We've curated and sourced the artisans that we represent in a lot of different ways over the years since it's been, since 1985. Some people come to us since we're known, and other artisans that we represent might recommend that they come and see us. Some people we find at craft shows, or we see their work, somebody wears it in, and we go and track it down and bring it. And then some people, interestingly, are with us in one medium, and then sometimes they evolve to another. They're all Canadian and mainly local. With the roughly 50 people that we have, I'd say more than half of those are Ottawa-Gatineau, and then the rest are from other cities in Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. If you can afford it, go to a small business and spend some money. It's lovely when you come in and give me a pep talk and tell me how much you love this place and you've been coming here for years. But if you can afford it, please spend some money too, because all the pep talks in the world are not going to pay my rent, which is still full rent even when we're closed. Then secondly, if you can't afford to spend money, follow the businesses that you want to support on social media. Go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook, follow their Twitter, and then retweet, share their Facebook page, like and comment, because if you can't afford to, as many of us can't right now, to do extra expenditures, doing all of those little things like that will raise the visibility of those small businesses and hopefully for them result in some online or curbside or other business for them.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
These decisions, they left a lot of people very concerned. In fact, they left a lot of people angry and upset. I know we got it wrong. I know we made a mistake. And for that, I'm sorry. And I sincerely apologize.
That's Ford. He's sorry, but the commentary class are not giving him a break. It is in the written word this morning in the Toronto Star, which never really has much that's good to say about the Premier. I think 4 columns in the Star today dedicated to the Ford apology. I mean, Bruce Arthur, has contempt for all things Ford. It just leaks from every orifice of the man. Quote, Bruce Arthur, Toronto Star today. His government owns the third wave, lock, stock, and coffins. They were told what would happen. They opened Ontario up anyway, waited until 3 weeks ago to do anything, waited another week before doing a little more, and left the vulnerable root causes untouched. Doug Ford and his government are responsible for every Ontarian, and it's too late to say sorry to so many of them. It doesn't matter if he cries. It doesn't matter if he's sorry. And that all that matters is that his government has done and what it does next. Then there's Martin Redcone, again from the Toronto Star, which claims to be Canada's most widely read newspaper. Okay, Canada's most widely read newspaper. Quote, Ontarians want a strategy, not merely an apology. People want direction for the province, not absolution for a premier. Ford has done nothing but pass the buck from the first fobbing off of sick pay on the federal government after choking off provincial sick pay rules he inherited from the previous Liberal government. The premier must fix sick pay or the infection will spread. He must also heal a province that is gravely injured. He cannot afford to get it wrong again, for all of Ontario will pay the price, as will the premier. Bob Hepburn, again, also in the Toronto Star this morning. Headline, Doug Ford won't resign, but he's heading for a huge defeat in the 2022 election. Now, I would save that copy of the paper because I'd be curious to see how well that ages, that prediction. Quoting here, let's be clear, Ford won't quit, but the chaos, flip-flops, and incoherency displayed by Ford in the past week on the pandemic file has caused leading conservatives to worry the party will lose the next election, which will be June 2nd, 2022. Adding to Ford's worries is the pile-on by columnists and editorial writers and media outlets that normally back the conservatives. They write about a leadership vacuum, incredible failures, police state tactics, and decisions that were just plain nuts. For the past 3 years, Doug Ford has portrayed himself as a strong, decisive leader, a can-do, take-no-prisoners guy who fights for the little guy and disdains downtown elites and others who disagree with his governing style. That's just one newspaper. Okay, the one that the Ford brothers have been like warring with their entire political careers, Toronto Star. And then in the Globe and Mail this morning, Tanya Talaga writes, Ontario's civil society has completely broken down. Ontario's civil society is completely broken down. Like I don't know about you, David. I came into work this morning, and look, I've been through all of this as you have, coming into work, going home every day, essential worker. I know it's bad, but I didn't see any roving armed gangs.
No?
Okay, didn't see any tipped over police cars on fire.
Really? Huh?
Okay, didn't see lineups for gasoline. Didn't see any stores being looted. All evidence of, the collapse of civil society, but anyway, this column says, civil society is completely broken down. Maybe just a bit over the top there. What do you think? Mr. Ford sheds tears, but they are too little, too late. Too little, too late. So that's some of the reaction in the media today to Doug Ford. Leo, Richmond, good morning, Leo.
Hi, Rob. Just about the Air India flight ban there.
Yes.
It's not going to work. There's always a way around. Mm-hmm.
Well, all I want to know is that a ban on.
Saying this morning there's another way around. You don't have to fly direct. There's going to be another way around to get here, and the variants are still going to come in, and it all doesn't matter. They didn't do it fast enough. The variants are already here, so they should have did it when they first got the first news, and the first news was like 2 weeks ago that there was this variant problem in India. So they should have acted much sooner. They tried to back off. But they got so much criticism from all the opposition and all that. They had to make a ban on the flights because they were getting too much.
Right. Okay.
But the thing is,
yes.
The thing is too, with the vaccine thing. In the House of Commons, Mr. Trudeau said that we're following the same guidelines as the UK. And Mr. Barrett, the MP from Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes. And
Michael
corrected
Barrett.
him on that, and he had said, "No, you got it wrong, Mr. Trudeau. It's 4 months for us. They're going 3 months." So he lied right there, right in the House of Commons.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. Okay. Thank you, Leo. Thank you. The latest case numbers are in. I want to pass these along. They're, I don't know if these are record-breaking case numbers for Ontario. They're not, David? No? Probably pretty close, I would say. Number for Ontario, case counts today, 4,505. Wow, that's a big number, 4,505. The number that we have right now for Ottawa is 247. 1,257 for Toronto, 1,232 in Peel. That's a total of 2,489, which David tells me is 55% of all the cases reported in the last 24 hours. Just wanted to get out there. Okay, let's get that out there right now. Janet in Ottawa. Good morning, Janet. You're on City News.
Oh, good morning.
Hi.
My husband and I listen to you every day. And
You're very smart people. You're very smart people.
It's the first time that I've ever called.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think Doug Ford has done a wonderful job.
Oh, really? Okay.
He couldn't win. I mean...
But we have 4,500 cases today.
Well, I'll tell you something. This pandemic, this third wave, has been like a tsunami. And all that Teflon Trudeau has done is send rowboats.
Okay.
So that's all I have to say.
Well, that's very good. That's a very good way to say it, I think.
Well,
yes.
You keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Now.
I appreciate it. Very kind of you. Very kind of you. Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. I've been tough on Doug Ford all week. I've been tough on his government for many weeks now. And make no mistake, I hear it from the diehards. But I don't know. The media coverage, and I'm not a big media critic. I prefer to praise the media when the media does great work, than be one of these people. Oh, the media's got it in for everybody, and it's fake news and all this stuff. That's not really my shtick. But boy, some of the stuff that's been in the media, like I don't think civil society is completely broken down, and nor do I think Doug Ford is personally liable for every single case of COVID-19 in the province, which is really the narrative in some of the coverage, that Doug Ford somehow did this deliberately because he's cruel, because he's heartless, because he's an ideologue, because he's a dummy that doesn't even know how to use a laptop computer, that Doug Ford has, as Andrew Horvath said this week, blood on his hands. Maybe that's how you see it. I don't. We're at halftime on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, April 23rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 8 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 7. And here's what's making news right now. First case of blood clot as a side effect of the AstraZeneca vaccine called VITT has now been discovered in Ontario. A man in his 60s has been treated and is recovering at home. The province not releasing any other information about this patient for privacy. It does make 4 people with this reaction across Canada out of the 1.1 million AstraZeneca doses that have been handed out. Latest numbers from the province, 4,505 cases of COVID today, new cases. 247 of them are in Ottawa. There are 11 more in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 25 more in Eastern Ontario's health unit, and the province counting 1 fewer case in Renfrew County. Toronto, 1,247 new cases of COVID-19 today. The province also reporting 32 more deaths. The latest modeling numbers nationally for COVID-19 being released right now. The National Chief Medical Officer of Health, Theresa Tam, says the daily rate of infection has doubled in the last month, more than 8,400 cases a day. Tam says the silver lining is the spread rate. It is optimal at below 1. It has been above that number for some time, but nationally, the number of people being infected by one person who has COVID is below 1 on average. It's a key figure to get control of the virus. Now, some areas in the country are still above 1, but the trend is in the right direction. Tam says we need consistent infection rate below 1 everywhere to bring the virus under lasting control. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how you regain trust from that. The Premier's got blood on his hands. I know it's a harsh thing to say, but that's exactly what's happening in our province, and I take no pleasure in saying it. I'm as horrified as everyone.
NDP leader of Ontario, Andrea Horwath, this week. Doug Ford has blood on his hands. Blood on his hands. Now, look, maybe that's how you see it, okay? And if you do, fine, okay? I'm not here to carry water for any political party. You know, I may be a right-winger, but I'm not beholden to any political party. You know, go ahead and vote for the other parties in the next election. You know, the voters are never wrong, but I would remind you, Premier Ford's been there, barely 3 years, right? The Liberals had 15 years in government. 15 years. Be careful what you wish for. You're running back to the Liberals. 15 years. 15 years spanning 2 premiers. That's how long it took, because they didn't do it until the bitter end, the Liberals, to offer working Ontarians a scant 2, count them, 2 paid sick days. 15 years it took to do that. Overcapacity in an Ontario hospital. Have you been living under a rock? Where were you when the Liberals froze hospital budgets for 6 years in a row? 6 years in a row. They forced hospitals. This was in the Canadian Association Medical Journal. They froze the budgets, forcing the hospital administration to jack up the price of parking so high at the hospitals in Ontario. Patients would skip appointments. They would not show up to their appointments at hospitals because they couldn't afford to park at the darn hospital. Long-term care. I would remind you that what's the Liberal record on long-term care in Ontario? You think that happened overnight? The crisis in long-term care? I've been around long enough. I remember George Smitherman, when instead of addressing the woeful conditions in long-term care, when Dalton McGuinty was the premier of this province, you know what he did? He joked. He joked about how he was going to wear an adult diaper just to find out what it was like. the health minister, Liberal health minister. You think that situation in long-term care it just snuck up on everyone during the pandemic? Yeah, go ask Howard Hampton. Look, that Liberal government was so inept. It started building a bridge in Pickering over the 401. It started building that bridge upside down. Okay? A bridge. Upside down, ladies and gentlemen. Upside down. Is a government that was so corrupt, some of its most powerful insiders were put on trial, and one was sentenced to jail. Mr. Livingston was sentenced to jail for his role in the gas plant scandal. Have you forgotten all of that? But please, go on and tell me how the Liberals are going to ride in to the rescue and save us all from Doug Ford. Friday free-for-all. Gosh, I've been wanting to get that off my chest all week. Who is it? Krista? Krista?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Krista.
Yes. Okay, well, it would be funny. It would, you have to laugh. You have to laugh about how the media spins things. And when you said, it's like going into a viper's den to face the media, it's like that for a politician. I thought you left out a word. It's like that for a conservative politician.
Oh, okay.
Nobody is as impertinent to a liberal as they are to conservatives. And I'm sorry to say that. I mean,
You think they're tougher on Doug Ford than they would be
tougher,
for... Yeah.
They're mean.
Mean, okay.
They're mean, and they're spinning things. I mean, and I don't know why people can't see it. I'm trying to teach my kids critical thinking. What are the facts?
Okay.
What are the facts here? Not what is the spin, but all we get is the spin. And, you can be a conservative of any name. If Trudeau was a conservative, he would get mean questions too.
Okay.
It's not just that he has nice hair. He's a liberal.
So you're saying they're not tough, they're mean, which is something different, right?
Yeah. They're mean.
It's one thing to be tough, it's another to be mean.
Well, if they ask the same questions to a liberal, like when Trudeau came into power and he said, I will make science-based decisions. Has anybody asked him, which is your science-based decision? I haven't seen one.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Nobody has asked him.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of people not impressed with some of the questions from some of the reporters yesterday for Premier Ford. That came through loud and clear during yesterday's program. No doubt about it. Ariane in Orleans. Hello. Is it Marianne?
Could it be Diane?
Could be Diane, sure, could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's me.
Yeah. Sorry about that. My apologies.
No, that's fine.
Okay, go
that's
ahead.
Fine. I absolutely agree with so many of the people that have phoned in. I think it was vitriolic diatribe from that guy. I think somebody should do something to him. They should use him. They should have used him for Lavalin. That would have been very good to hear all that vilifying of poor Ford should have been done to Trudeau a long time ago. However, that's gone. I would just like to say that if the borders had been closed properly, as Doug Ford begged them to do, but they didn't do it, and it still isn't being done properly.
Right.
We all know that.
Yeah.
And also, this technical thing, I mean, what is the measure of a man that you have to be so technically acute? It's ridiculous. I think that's mean. I think the word mean isn't good enough for what was said yesterday. I think he's done the good a job as he could with what's been happening. And I think the person to blame isn't one, it's the public. We are to blame for what's gone on because so many of us didn't care a toss about. They all said, it's not this is crap. It's just Bill Gates. It's Amazon conspiracies. It's nothing to do. They planted all this to get us to like a police state. Absolute crap. And people still believe it. They actually believe there isn't a pandemic.
Yeah, some people, after all of this, some of them are in elected office.
Exactly.
All right,
Don't
Diane.
do as I do as I say.
Yeah, thank you, Diane.
But honestly, I would back Ford anytime.
Oh, you
I
would?
think he's a decent guy who's had the world on his shoulders, and he's done the best job he can. So he screwed up a couple of times. He's human. But I think the people, us, Canadians, we should put the blame a lot on ourselves because we didn't do as we were asked in the first... No, that's a lie. In the very first place, the first one, when we were locked down, that was pretty good. But after that, it got worse and worse and worse. And everybody thought, oh, hell, it's fine, everything's fine, it's not a pandemic, it's a load of whatever. Okay. But I just like to back Doug Ford, and I'd like to give him a hug and say, don't worry, they're a load of... I won't use the word.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll end our conversation there, Diane. Thank you. Well, I mean, some would say, those who practice the dark art of politics might say Doug Ford could learn a thing or two from Justin Trudeau, especially on how to backtrack and how to apologize. Watch and learn. Okay, watch the Jedi Master of backtracking and apologizing go to work, young Padawan. Okay, take for example. Mr. Trudeau's decision to finally take this small step on what's happening at the airport, right? Suspending the flights from India and Pakistan. See, for Ford, the theme is too little, too late. For Trudeau, it's like better late than never. But this is how one of the newspapers writes the story this morning about Mr. Trudeau's decision to suspend flights from India and Pakistan for the next 30 days. Quote, Ottawa... like not the Trudeau government or the Liberal government, it's Ottawa has halted direct passenger air traffic from India and Pakistan owing to growing concern about COVID-19 variants after calls from provincial leaders to impose travel restrictions. Transport Minister Omar Al-Gabra said on Thursday he is suspending all commercial and private passenger jets arriving from the two countries for the next 30 days. The measure took effect Thursday evening. But you see... who made that decision? Who's in the media? Who's on television? Who's doing the interviews with the CBC and CTV? Who's facing the media? Is it Trudeau? No, it's the loyal cabinet minister, right? Left holding the bag, Omar Al-Gabra. See, lesson one, Mr. Ford, from the Justin Trudeau playbook. If you're going to backtrack... you backtrack so far away, you can't even be seen. Okay? You're not the one on camera taking the grilling. You're on camera today getting your vaccine. The good news announcement. And when it comes to saying you're sorry, you never say you're sorry. Don't ever say you're sorry for anything you did. Don't ever admit that you ever made a mistake or a questionable decision that had an undesirable outcome. You don't give the media or your political opponent, you don't give them any ammunition, even if the mistake is egregious. Like you can't even remember how many times you've worn blackface. You can't remember if you ever groped a woman. You can't remember if your henchman tried to interfere with a criminal prosecution. Okay? If anything like that ever happens, never say you're sorry. If the only thing that comes close to sorry, you should call it a learning opportunity. It's a learning opportunity, not just for you, but for everyone, right? Or some people experience things differently. Talk about blind spots and privilege or jobs. Hey, it's working, isn't it? 40% in the polls. Cusp of a majority government. Bob, Ottawa South. Bob.
Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Rock solid, buddy. On fire.
You sure?
All it takes is 3 hours for me, Bob, and I'll straighten out the whole world.
Great. Just a few. In the past week, some things that have taken place shows that Ford really cares about the people. Well, Trudeau is looking for a majority government. Ford did make a mistake. He's now admitted it. He's apologized, and he's promised some changes.
Yeah.
Trudeau, despite healthcare crisis and almost unanimous request from the provinces for enhancing healthcare, tables a budget that provides a new child care program, a program that the provinces can't afford right now.
Right. That relies on half the money to be spent by the provinces in order to provide it at all, right?
That's right. It's a phony because he knows the provinces can't afford it.
Right.
And then yesterday, he's on this Zoom call on climate change.
Climate change, yes.
You know, he's electioneering. Well, the health crisis in Canada is at an all-time high. He doesn't give a damn about people. He just wants to win his majority government.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Well, when it comes to Mr. Trudeau, I mean, as far as the media is concerned, it's like he didn't even make the decision to suspend the flights. He's not quoted in any of the news stories. He's not the one on television explaining why there are almost 40 cases of this variant from India in British Columbia, or how a Indian variant of a COVID-19 virus ended up in Trois-Rivières or in Alberta. And look, if it's one thing we've learned, if it's in those places, it's everywhere. You know, it's in Peel now. It's in Toronto. It's everywhere now. They just haven't detected it yet. Backtrack. So far away, you're never seen or heard. You're only around for the good news, like getting a shot of vaccine. You never say you're sorry, ever. Mistakes don't warrant apologies. They are learning opportunities. And that is how you win the hearts and minds of the exhausted Canadian voter. This is the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. Back with more of your calls. Irene, Tim, Nick, and James on City News.
Well, we all loved our rock T-shirts growing up, right? It was our badge. Hey, we went to this concert. We knew that band inside out. So we kept doing that and kept promoting that. What's sort of happening now is that audience is dying. I always say the earth is flat. So the 60s rockers are falling off the end of the earth. So you don't see as big a sales anymore because my audience is disappearing. What's sort of helping to promote that history is the kids are buying vinyl. And luckily we have a vinyl shop in the neighborhood here, Record Center. So what's happening is I've seen kids come in with their dad. And the dad saying, hey, do you have any Beatles shirts? Do you have any CBGB? Do you have any of this? I said, well, why? He said, well, because my daughter's into it. She's wearing my T-shirt. So slowly it's coming back, right? The kids are, I think, getting fed up with the generic music that's out there. And they want to click into something that, first of all, links them to their parents, something that they thoroughly enjoy now, and maybe they're passing it on to their grandkids. Pandemic has been a couple of things, definitely hard on everybody. So much messaging that's out there that people don't understand, stats every day. Jesus, Murphy, like I'm getting a headache just reading this stuff, right? So really it was just trying to understand where we were going to go from there. The city of Ottawa all of a sudden said, everybody's got to wear a mask. You got to wear it on the bus. People were scrambling, okay? And I had, the store next door had really big windows, so I just flooded the window with masks. Well, that was the activity that saved the business. People were coming in buying 2, 3, 4 masks at a time at $20 a pop here. But my masks were so different. They were the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Queen, all the pop culture. Everything else out there was medical masks. And right, so people said, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to show my rock and roll. So it became the new T-shirt as far as I'm concerned. Well, what I've done, I'm Hindenburg. I'm now at 1114A Wellington Street, which is next door to the Fab Gear store. And the reason I've changed names, I've rebranded the store, is because I was planning on retiring. And in December, I go, oh, I'm not going to retire. But I've committed to changing what the store is about. So I came up with a new name, Fab Gear's Rock Shop, where legends are dressed. And essentially get that message out. I prefer, if the shirt don't fit, you come in, you try another one on. People like to feel the fabrics with clothing. It's amazing. You'll come in and go, oh, I love that. Oh, can I try this? So that's the big difference. I'm not out to make a gazillion dollars. I stick the way I am, old school. I take cash, we take cards. Come on in and talk to the owner.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Tim, thanks for waiting. You're on City News.
Hi, Rob. I work for a major carrier. I'm not going to say which one because it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
Every booking from India and Pakistan yesterday has now been rerouted through a different country and still en route to Canada. It's just nothing but a smoke and mirrors game they're playing. And as I said in a Zoom meeting with my boss yesterday, is this not unethical, what we're doing here? And he looked at me and he said, it's business.
Right. So this is one of the questions that I have, because a lot of the language in the media reporting this morning is direct flights have been suspended.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Okay. So I noticed, for example, back in, I believe it was December of last year, Air Canada actually started doing 3 direct flights a week, Delhi to Toronto, 3 a week.
Correct. Correct.
So those would be suspended. Those would be suspended. But my understanding also is, and you're in the industry, for people flying, say, from India to Canada, direct flights are more expensive than if you want to have a stop. If you do a stopover, the flight is much cheaper, and the popular stopover destinations or hubs are Doha, Frankfurt, and Dubai.
Yes.
So
you just said it.
Yeah.
All we've done is reroute all our passengers that have paid for these flights to one of those 3 hubs, and they're still coming to Canada.
And they're going to come in to Canada. Wow. Okay. Right.
So
right.
it shows how unethical the government is, and the government knows this. They know this, but they can sell this, and we can all feel good and wring our hands and say, "Oh no, well, look, they're really doing something."
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Yeah, that's very interesting. Irene in Ottawa. Good morning, Irene.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
I won't keep you long. I'm just wondering who's in charge of the circus with the vaccine rollout. Okay. First of all, I called the nursing home my mother's in Cape Breton.
Oh yes. Okay. All right.
Okay, and she's turning 90. She got her second dose this week.
Oh, good.
I guess the 2 caregivers, my brothers that go visit, they got their second dose, but the staff have to wait 105 days between doses. Okay.
Wow.
And here in Ontario, okay, my nephew in the military, he's under 30. Him and I were scheduled close the same days for our vaccine. I got a Pfizer. I have to wait 105 days. He got the Moderna. And guess what? They're getting theirs in 28 days.
Yes.
Their second shot.
Right.
So the thing is where's the guidelines? Like, I'm sure the military follows under the federal guidelines, and Corrections Canada probably follows under the federal guidelines. So why are they getting their doses within, the manufacturer's guidelines, like the 3 weeks or the 4 weeks?
Yeah.
And the rest of us, the sick ones, have to wait 105 days.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah.
And they did they're in the military, send out orders, 500 vaccines a day for the next 2 months. So that means they're going to vaccinate 15,000, and they're going to get their double dose. And they're all young people, and the rest of us who are sickies, older.
Yes.
We're getting screwed.
Okay.
Anyway.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you for your call, ma'am. Yeah, very interesting. I hope Jennifer won't mind. Jennifer turned 50 last Friday, yeah. So a lot of, we know some people in the United States, and they were all calling her on Friday from various American cities, all the same. We all went to high school together. I've known her that long. And we were asking, have you been vaccinated? Yes. Have you been vaccinated? All like 49, 50 years old. Every one of them, without exception. Yep, all been vaccinated. 2 doses, 3 weeks apart or 4 weeks apart, depending on the vaccine that they had. 21 days or 28 days. Remarkable. And they didn't even blink about it. Yep, just went into the local pharmacy. Lickety-split, done lickety-split. Must be nice. James, Riverside. James.
Good morning.
Yeah, hi, James. Yep.
couple points.
Sure.
First is Colin DeMello.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wants a talk show, he should get a talk show.
Okay.
He's not an editorialist.
Right. Okay.
And I just.
You thought he went too far? What, cross the line there yesterday, or?
Way too far. I can't watch CBC now. I can't watch CTV.
Okay.
So,
well,
all
right. Okay.
I don't know what to watch anymore.
All right. That's your opinion. Yep. You're welcome to it.
Second point. I think Ford. I like Ford. I voted for him in the leadership race. I think he should have just imposed a curfew. It sounds like he wanted to restrict movement. It had been done in Quebec.
Yeah.
It seems to work in Quebec, and I think he's just, he's causing himself problems by trying to reinvent the wheel. And I know he said he's opposed to curfews, but I think, and I thought immediately of Harper. I think Harper was probably opposed to deficits, but then when the world economy froze in 2008, he had to run deficits.
Yeah, if the circumstances change, and in 2008 with the financial crisis, they changed big time. I mean, just knowing the mindset of Harper and Flaherty, they never pictured themselves running deficits, let alone at that time some of the largest deficits in Canadian history, or bailing out the auto sector, for example, things like that. Sometimes you have to be pragmatic and set your ideology aside. That was the lesson, I think, that Stephen Harper learned.
Yeah. And last point, I haven't heard you guys bring this up on the air before, but you guys have a great app that you can download.
Yes.
And you can listen to if you missed the show, you can listen to the show.
The podcast, Yeah,
the podcast. So anyways, I haven't heard you guys talk about that.
Okay,
so
yeah. David, what time do you usually, thanks, very kind, James, thank you. What time does the podcast usually go up after the show is done anyway?
12:30.
Around 12:30.
Before 1, yeah.
All right, let's take this. This will be the last call of the week here, so it's got to be the best. The best for last. Nick in Canada. Nick.
Hey, good morning. I want to say I enjoyed your lessons that Premier Ford could learn from the drama teacher, but you missed my favorite line that he's used a lot lately is, I will do anything and everything to put the needs of Canadians first. I love that one, whether it be illegal, as it was with the WE scandal, whether it be immoral with the 2 ethic violations and the third one down the pipe coming. I think that's a line we could all use. In fact, when I commit a crime, I'm going to use that line. I'm doing everything I can to keep my family safe, so I needed to rob that bank.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for your call. Thank you for all your calls this week and your passion for the current events of the day. Rob Snow Show, City News.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, April 23rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 8 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 7. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. First case of blood clots from the AstraZeneca vaccine have been found in Ontario. Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. David Williams, says this first case of what's known as VITT is a man in his 60s who has received his first AstraZeneca vaccine. The man has received treatment for the blood clots and is recovering now at home. Dr. Williams says they have taken steps to ensure these events are identified and treated as quickly as possible. This is now the fourth case of VITT in Canada out of more than 1.1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine that have been doled out. Latest numbers from the province on COVID infections today show 4,505 new cases. 247 of them are in Ottawa. There are 11 new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 25 more in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, and with a change in the calculation, one fewer case today in Renfrew. Now, Toronto has 1,247 new cases, and the province is reporting 32 more deaths from COVID-19. Federal officials now providing new COVID-19 modeling for the country. It comes on a busy day on the federal COVID front. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
Yeah, the new data just released shows that infections and hospitalizations have increased dramatically over the last month, with variants now making up half of the new cases we're seeing. Canada's Chief Medical Health Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam.
Average case counts are now more than double what they were a month ago, with over 8,400 cases being reported daily over the past week.
But the modeling shows that the lockdowns that several provinces have taken over the last month are working. And if people keep adhering to public health measures, then we should see a leveling off of numbers over the next month. It also says if we want to have a summer that's close to normal, then that will depend on Canadians getting their vaccines and following health advice. Meanwhile, later today, the Prime Minister will be holding his federal COVID update, and he'll be receiving his first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Speaking of AstraZeneca, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization will be updating its guidance on the shot. It's still advising it for people 55 and up due to blood clot concerns. However, Health Canada has approved it for all adults, and several provinces have already lowered the minimum age to 40. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:03, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A gorgeous day for us today. Sun and cloud, a gusty west wind. Our high 16 degrees today. Tonight, mainly clear and 6. And for the weekend, looks good Saturday, sun and cloud up to 19. Periods of light rain for Sunday. For today, the high 16.
And right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's 8 degrees. The provincial government is working on exactly how this paid sick day program is going to look, but details remain scant for the time being. However, there are some calling on the burden of paid sick days not to fall on business owners. Su-Ling Ching is president and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade and tells City News what she would like to see out of the program.
What we need is for it to be simple and clear, and for it to be funded by the government so there's no extra financial burden on businesses.
She also feels the decision is highly overdue since it addresses an inequity in society while also helping reduce transmission of COVID-19. A former reality TV star and former Olympic athlete wants to be the next governor of California.
With a tweet reading, "I'm in," Caitlyn Jenner, who is a longtime Republican, is now running for governor of California to unseat Governor Gavin Newsom in a likely recall election like what was seen in 2003 when Governor Gray Davis was recalled and Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor. A growing list of celebrity names like former porn star Mary Carey are all running again. In her announcement, Jenner bashing Governor Newsom for his performance during COVID in California. Alex Stone, ABC News, Los Angeles.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
I have seen all week on social media a lot of pictures of Ornge Air Ambulance helicopters in the skies over Ottawa. That Ornge Air Ambulance is very busy right now because of patient transfers. Intensive care unit patients being transferred, for example, out of hospitals in the GTA to hospitals, for example, here in the Ottawa area. Let's find out what is happening at our air ambulance service from Dr. Michael Lewell, Associate Medical Officer of Ornge Transport Medicine. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
I hear you're busy.
Yes, no, this is a very stressful time for our provincial partners and our organization as coordinated to the command center. We're trying to be able to maintain capacity at all ICUs throughout the GTA. So it's a very stressful time, and we're at our maximum capacity trying to assist.
So it says on the Ornge Twitter feed a record 80 transfers done yesterday, for example. Would they all be COVID patients, or?
Great question. So it's important when we're looking at the numbers to understand exactly what we're looking at. Ornge maintains a dual mission currently. One is to support, obviously, all of our provincial partners to get access to emergency care when there are trauma or cardiac or neurosurgical issues or obstetrics that are happening all across the province. But also now we have a second mission, which is also highly pressing, to be able to maintain ICU capacity at the GTA hospitals and across the province. And so we're actively engaged in that. Not all of those 80s are ICU-specific COVID-related transports. Nevertheless, a significant percentage are. About 30 to 40 critical care patients each day we're being asked to move that are COVID-specific, and we're accomplishing nearly that task now through our partners at Critical, but also our centrally coordinated through our command center, and with additional funding support from the Ministry of Health, which has been fantastic. But lastly, from our frontline providers that are through a provincial-wide call-out for staff have all agreed to do extra overtime despite being exhausted with this pandemic. Day after day, they show up and provide this high level of care in the back of all our assets, our rotor aircraft, our fixed wing, and mostly through our land vehicles, actually, just based on logistics.
Okay. So tell me about the fleet of Ornge. What makes up the fleet of Ornge these days?
So we have bases all around the province, and those that are interested can go to our website and take a look and see where the map actually are for all the different bases.
Okay.
We have a combination of land vehicles staffed by our critical care paramedics, as well as AW-139 helicopters, which you'll see in the sky, and also a fleet of Pilatus aircraft, which are fixed-wing aircraft, which we move. In addition to that, we have multiple standing agreement aircraft that are available on contract to move some of our less ill patients. So from a repatriation point of view, across the province.
I see. Like non-Ornge branded aircraft.
That is right. It is a tightly coordinated network as controlled through our operations center in Toronto.
Okay. In terms of aircraft, how many do you roughly know how many altogether that you would have? Or?
Yeah, at any given time, we have 6 available Pilatus fixed wing, which are dedicated aircraft, 12 rotor aircraft, which are AW-139s, and we have a fleet of land vehicles that are moving, that it seems to be moving all the time. We've also been, in conjunction with our land paramedic service partners, adding and borrowing vehicles and staffing them with our staff, as well as some partnerships with them to be able to increase our capacity. We've nearly doubled our land transport capacity over the last 3 weeks, with support from the Ministry of Health.
So, when we look up, we see the Ornge Air ambulance in the sky, the helicopter, okay?
Yep.
And it's probably coming into Ottawa somewhere. Maybe it's going to the General or whatnot. Maybe the Civic. I know there's a landing spot at the Civic. But what's the crew made up of? Let's say you have a COVID patient, maybe they're intubated, whatever the case might be. Who is on that helicopter taking care of the patient?
Great. So we have a pilot and a first officer that are flying the aircraft. And in the back, we have 2 critical care paramedics, which are highly trained professionals that are able to maintain essentially a high-level ICU level of care, meaning that the patient's intubated and mechanically ventilated on a ventilator. They usually have 3 or 4 infusions to be able to maintain blood pressure, sedation, analgesia, as well as some other infusions that may be required depending on the case. and it is a highly, highly technical skill, and I am fiercely proud of the work they're able to provide in all their assets, both land and air.
Have you, at Ornge, I'm just curious, had to make any retrofits to the vehicles themselves because of COVID?
So prior to COVID, we had experience in flying infectious disease. Obviously, tuberculosis, other types of infections have been present prior to COVID. So we have policies and procedures in place for us to be able to manage that and to be able to adapt. Nevertheless, COVID is new for everyone over the last year. So we've spent an exhaustive amount of time with our operations fleets, making sure that all our PPE, as well as our preparations for every individual asset, air, fixed wing, rotor, and land, we have the appropriate PPE that fits with the World Health Organization as well as the CDC recommendations. And as the literature evolves, we adapt it as needed. And we've even done some home research in partnership with some universities looking at dispersion of particles in our various aircraft at various altitudes, using differing types of oxygen delivery devices to make sure that the dispersion keeps our crew safe.
Critical care paramedics, you said. That's the people taking care of the patients, right? Critical care paramedics. Okay. How many of those do you have on staff, would you say?
That's a great question. I don't have that number in front of me. But all
have you had to ramp up, Doctor?
What we had to ramp up is because they're so highly trained, you can't just actually go hire them. They're a unique, highly specialized elite group that all we can do is ask them to turn out in larger numbers based on their schedule. So they have done just that, and that's what I think is a great news story about that. Day after day, they're going overtime and overtime shift after another, back to back, because they realize the pressing need, and they're professional, and they're getting the job done.
Yeah, because we hear that, for example, in a hospital setting, it's not so much, equipment or ventilators. We've pretty much figured that out. Or PPE, we've got that under control now. Or even beds, lots of beds. But it's the real shortfall is human resources right now. And I'm wondering how, if at all, that's affecting the Ornge side of medicine in Ontario right now, Doctor.
That's a great question. And for sure, without underestimating our team, they must be exhausted, and I know they are, but they're professional. They are on the front line. They see the need. Like never before, they're laser focused on this, and they continue to impress all of us by their willingness to put their hand up and deliver day after day. So we have not been impacted from an operations point of view. We've actually doubled and tripled our staff in some situations, meaning that what are available each day. But that's done with existing cadres of our staff. So we have not hired a bunch because there's none to hire. We just ask them to work harder and longer, and they are, and for that they should be commended.
Yeah. But you have to keep it, ensuring safety as well. Jeepers creepers, flying helicopters, for crying out loud, right? We don't want exhausted pilots, for example, flying helicopters all across Ontario, right? So
that's a fantastic question, and that is true. And so on the aviation side of our organization, we have tight restrictions that are in place by Transport Canada that we adhere to at all times. Adequate duty rest. We have a fatigue management program that we're making sure that when if there's ever a question about fatigue, then we understand that we can be operationally replaced to maintain the highest levels of safety that are possible. And there's a tight monitoring on that without question.
Okay, my last question would be, let's say, I don't even know if you know the answer to this, but I'm just curious. Let's say a call comes in from a hospital in the Toronto area. This person is now available for transport to the Civic or the General here in Ottawa. How long do you figure that? How long does it take to transfer somebody in an air ambulance, say from Toronto to Ottawa? I know it's about an hour's flight, from the Ottawa airport to Porter Airlines into the island airport. But how long does it take that process on a helicopter like that?
That's great. So all these transports are coordinated essentially by the Ontario Command Center, which meets multiple times a day, looking at the individual hospital capacities to make sure that no one is overrun. We identify that certain hospitals are getting close to their edge in terms of capacity, and it's literally moment by moment that we're all communicating as the intensivists as well as the transport organization. We have them book patients through Critical, which gets pushed to us at Ornge. Okay. We then assign the closest available aircraft. Without question, because of our volume of cases that we've been looking at, we have had up to 40 at some moments waiting. But nevertheless, we've been able to continue to rise to the occasion. And as I speak to you now, we have 4 still unassigned. And we're currently, as I speak, moving 21 critical care patients across the province. That is at this moment. So to answer your question, usually within about a 24-hour turnaround, we're able to move patients. Once they have an aircraft assigned, depending on if it's coming from a hospital with a helipad and we're using our rotor aircraft, well, then the time to definitive care becomes less because we can go pad to pad. If it's a land move, Ottawa is too far to drive from the GTA, so therefore we require fixed-wing aircraft.
Okay.
And the fixed-wing aircraft themselves require land EMS movements on both sides, so it's not just the actual flight. Gotcha. It's all the logistics of loading and moving back and forth to airports. That takes a number of hours.
Well, look, thanks for joining us today. And you know, just on behalf of our listeners, thanks to all your staff and everything you're doing right now.
I'll pass it along.
Yeah, it's
Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thank you, Dr. Michael Lowell, Associate Medical Officer, Ornge Transport Medicine. Isn't that fascinating? 11:17. Steve Warne on the, what a week for the Sens. Great week for the Ottawa Senators this week. We'll talk about it coming right up here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. You know, there's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery's rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. You know, then customer service, you know, we're big on that. The cashiers, the deli, you're not, if you ask for something, they're not going to point, it's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there, okay? If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers. And we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, you know, can you try getting me this? You know, can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now, okay? So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to, you know, live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that, you know, like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, you know, from like all over the world. And we source it through, you know, distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. Nothing really complicated about that. You know, we turn over a lot of product. You know, we package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You know, you're always going to find, you know, Cuddy turkey breast, you know, San Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, like, you know, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. You know, your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, you know, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. You know, takes, you know, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
Is changing.
So So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
In sports, the Ottawa Senators have won 3 games in a row, and they've won 4 of their last 5 games, which makes the Ottawa Senators, ladies and gentlemen, the hottest team in the North Division, the All-Canada Division. What a week. What a week. Steve Warne is here from the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warne Project. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Nice week for the Ottawa Senators. What'd you think of how they played this week?
Well, they're playing fantastically. There's no question about that. It's fascinating to see them go 2 years without a single shutout. Now they have 2 in the last 3 games. They do seem to have figured things out a little. They have been really good for the most part in the last month and a half. But, boy, since the trade deadline, they've looked as good as anybody in the NHL right now. And so you've got to be thrilled if you're a Sens fan right now. Matt Murray seems to have his act back together. They're playing stable in front of him. And, it's been great to see across the board. You've got to be thrilled.
What do you think the difference has been, Steve?
Well, I think you've got a bunch of guys moved out at the deadline. Mike Riley, Eric Goodbranson, Braden Coburn, and then an injection of kids. They bring in, Shane Pinto down from North Dakota, and he just stepped right in. You've got Eric Brandstrom playing a bigger role now, and Alex Formanson's up now. I mean, they've just transitioned, and I keep going back to it. There was just garbage preparation at the start of the year, and it just took time. There were a lot of young guys on this team. They were unfamiliar with each other, turning over half the roster. They had no preparation with no exhibition games. And so everybody's just trying to figure things out. And eventually it started to come about a month ago. And now the kids just have confidence right now. And they feel like they can go to the rink now, not hating the sport as they seem to be in the first month. So I think there's been this infusion of energy, this infusion of youth, and they've got confidence now.
What do you think about this new Matt Murray? Because, well, to be quite frank, my confidence in him was shattered, Steve.
You and everyone else.
He did not play well. He'd be the first probably to tell you that he wasn't playing well, and he got hurt. They've changed the goaltending coach. He comes back from injury, and he looks like a brand new goaltender, but I don't know. It's only been a few games, so I don't know what to make of it. What do you make of it, Steve? Matt Murray, because, I mean, he's making a lot of money. If they made one big move in the offseason, that was it, getting that guy. So,
yeah, I think, you look at it and you go back to that old question, are goalies good because teams are good in front of them, or are the teams good because the goalies are good? Chicken or the egg thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think both statements are true to a degree, but after this whole Matt Murray, Ottawa Senator thing this year, I think I'm far more in the camp of goalies are good because teams are playing well in front of them. Because what happened, Robin, we talked about it in previous conversations. What happened when Matt Murray got hurt? Well, that was right around the time the team started getting better. And what are the odds that not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 guys who were replacing Murray would come in and look better than Murray right at a time when the team was starting to look better in front of him? Those are pretty long odds. I think they were a gong show in their own end. I think that affected Murray, made him skittish in the early going. He got hurt just when the team was getting good. And I think now the team is playing better. Murray's more stable, more confident. He's not sitting there in his crease going, what is that guy doing? Why did he do that? And I think that mucks you up sometimes as a goaltender. So that's where my headspace is on Matt Murray.
Okay.
But I will caution that these are not meaningful games right now for the Ottawa Senators.
No.
You take this for what it is. Pressure changes everything. It's like your golf game, Rob. If you're out there playing by yourself, you're hitting the ball pretty well. Get a few buddies, get a bit of money on the line, changes everything. And
suddenly there's a crowd at the first tee. And then it's a different story. Look, I have to, I want to ask you this because everybody's really impressed with Alex Formaton. He finally gets the call up. We knew about his speed. He's become a real threat on the penalty kill now. You know who he reminds me of? And I don't think he's as skilled as Antoine Vermette, but that's really who he reminds me of, Steve. Antoine Vermette, Alex Formenton, the next Antoine Vermette.
I think that's a reasonable comparison. They both kill penalties, and they're both blazing fast.
Yeah.
I'd say Formenton is one of the fastest guys in Sens history. I'm not sure you could point to another guy who's faster. He's Connor McDavid fast. Now, McDavid is still fast with the puck, but I don't think Formenton is in McDavid's category in that area, carrying the puck. But, gosh, the speed that guy has, he's noticeable on every single shift, killing penalties, and I'm shocked. I'm honestly shocked it took the Senators this long to bring that guy up.
I'm trying to think back in those glory days when Vermette was playing for the Sens, and there were always there always seemed to be a odd man rush on the penalty kill. Who was with him on the penalty kill? Who Antoine Vermette's partner used to be on the penalty kill? But I couldn't think. I don't know if it was Van Allen or somebody like that who it would have been. But anyway, maybe that's a conversation for another day.
I'm not sure.
Late night games. They're playing against the Canucks for the next 4 games. So 10 o'clock is the next game, and I believe that's tomorrow night. Tomorrow night be the late game. Red Blacks. What do you think the chances are that the Red Blacks could really be playing in August for the CFL? What do you think?
Boy, predicting COVID, right? That's been a tricky venture. I mean, you think about all the conversations you've had on your show about COVID and what the destiny is for everybody. It's a difficult thing to say. It's where are we at with vaccines? That's hard to predict as well. It's so much more about what's going on outside of the stadium and so much away from football. But I feel like they'll be able to by August, and it's just all guesswork. It feels like they should be able to get to a stage, if everything's done well between now and then, to get at least some fans into games, and maybe they can get it going in August. But I got to say there's a big part of me that's skeptical, because it seems like the leagues that are proceeding and continuing to do business are the ones that are making serious money. And if CFL clubs can only let a few people in, I don't know if there's a lot of appetite for that, because while their TV deal is okay, it doesn't compare to the major sports. So if there's just a pittance as far as attendance coming in, doing business, I mean, that's not an easy ask for all the CFL owners. So if you're to ask me, do I think it'll start in August? I'm hopeful, but I probably would put my money on no.
Okay. Have a great weekend, Steve Warne. Thanks again.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, great stuff. From the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warne Project, that is Steve Warne. His podcasts are great. Listen to them on all your streaming platforms. All right. It's been a big week in Ontario politics. Queen's Park Week in Review. Next on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, April 23rd. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's sunny, a little breezy, and 10 degrees. Here's what's making news right now. Canada has a fourth case of a person developing a rare blood clot after getting the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. The person is a man in his 60s who had received his first dose. He is being treated at home and is recovering. The 4 cases are out of more than 1.1 million AstraZeneca doses administered across this country. None of the blood clot cases in Canada have been fatal. Health officials still deem the benefits of the vaccine far outweigh any risks. Provincial health officials reporting 247 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa out of 4,505 new cases across Ontario. 34 more people in this province have died due to the virus. Elsewhere locally, Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit confirms 10 new cases of COVID-19, 7 of those in the past 24 hours. Public Health Ontario reports 25 new cases in Eastern Ontario and has removed 1 case from Renfrew County's numbers. The local health units update their numbers in the afternoon, and today's report is out of over 56,000 tests. Hospitalizations have declined slightly in the province, but the numbers of patients in intensive care and those on ventilators are up. Canada's top public health doctor says there's been an increase of more than 200,000 COVID-19 cases since last month, but there are signs that the spread of the infection is slowing down. Dr. Teresa Tam says the average case counts have more than doubled over the past month. But Dr. Tam says there's a reason for hope. Canada's declining reproduction rate, which represents how many people are infected by each new case. She says this measure has fallen below the key threshold of 1 for the first time in weeks, meaning the rate of transmission is trending downwards. I'm Sarah Buchan for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
It's time for Queen's Park Weekend Review. 3 MPPs joining me now. France Gelina is the New Democrat MPP for the riding of Nickelbelt. She's in Sudbury today. Good morning.
Good morning.
John Fraser is Liberal MPP for Ottawa South. Good morning, John.
And Rob.
And Goldie Ghamari, Progressive Conservative MPP for the riding of Carleton. Good morning, Goldie Ghamari.
Good morning, Rob.
Okay, this was Doug Ford yesterday.
These decisions, they left a lot of people very concerned. In fact, they left a lot of people angry and upset. I know we got it wrong. I know we made a mistake. And for that, I'm sorry, and I sincerely apologize.
Premier Ford yesterday apologizing, but the official opposition, for example, France Gelina, do you accept Doug Ford's apology?
I would tell you, Rob, that what the people of Ontario want is they want action. It is terrible to see. I mean, your newscast just said another 4,000 people were infected yesterday. Our hospitals are full, our ICUs are full, the ventilated are full, and we know what to do, and the government is still not doing it. So I would say people want action more than personal apologies, and they want paid sick days, and they want the public health measures to be there.
Okay. When you say we know what we need to do, what do you think we should be doing that we're not doing? What should the government be doing at this point? Because the Premier Ford said yesterday an add-on paid sick day program to the federal one is already it's in the works, France. So
yes. It's in the work, but it is not there.
Okay.
We need it immediately. You will remember on February 11 when Dr. Steiny Brown made his press conference. He made it clear that in order to not get to what he had forecasted for mid-April, which is what we're living now, in order to not live this, we needed to bring paid sick days. We needed to close non-essential businesses. We needed to give people opportunity, businesses opportunity to be supported so that they did the right thing. None of this was done. We still don't have paid sick days. There's still non-essential businesses that are going. They are still precarious workers who this morning made the decisions to go to work. Although they had symptoms of COVID, they knew that if they didn't go to work, they were not going to be able to pay their rent and feed their kids. All of this, we know, none of this is being done.
None of it's being done. Okay. John Fraser from the Liberal Party, do you accept the Premier's apology yesterday?
Rob, we all know this isn't easy. But, Premier Ford has, last Friday was kind of the exclamation mark on what people were saying was enough. And, Premier Ford's listened to the wrong voices. He's made poor choices, and he's failed to act quickly enough.
Okay, well, hold on, John. Just let me jump in there. You say he's made poor choices. Give me an example. What's a poor choice that he made?
Well, the poor choice, the biggest exclamation point was last week, was to choose carding and closing playgrounds over paid sick days, over actually really looking at what essential workplaces were, about vaccinating essential workers in hotspots and actually increasing the supply of vaccines. All the things the science table asked for, the Premier did none of them. That's a poor choice. So he's listening to the wrong voices. I mean, we've gone through 3 different sets of lockdown measures in 3 weeks. So what's really needed here, Rob, and, look, we need a steady hand, someone who's going to listen to the science, someone who's going to take action on that, someone who's going to calm the waters. And the Premier has not been able to do that. And I really hope that he steps aside to give some space to bring someone in who's got a steady hand, who's going to listen to the science, and who's going to guide us through this. Because that's what Ontario needs right now. This is here in Ottawa, it's a serious situation in some communities. When you look at places like Brampton and Peel, Brampton had a positivity rate of 22%. And it's affecting some communities in ways that we don't see, and I think probably a lot of us can't imagine.
Okay, thank you. I want to get to Goldie Ghamari. I want to get from comments from as many of our panelists as we can. Goldie Ghamari, doesn't sound like there's a lot of appetite for an apology from the Premier, from your colleagues on this panel. Go ahead.
Well, there hasn't been appetite from them for anything that we've done, Rob, so quite frankly, I'm not surprised. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to Ontarians, the Premier's heartfelt words to Ontarians speak for themselves. I think it's a sign of a strong leader and a sign of true leadership when someone, especially politicians, when they're under so much scrutiny, when someone is able to stand up and say, look, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, here's how I'm fixing it. So it's very easy for opposition parties to just point the finger and lay the blame at the feet of this government. But at the end of the day, since this once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic hit, we have been working nonstop. The Premier has been working 24/7, round the clock, making decisions, doing the best that he can with the evidence and the facts that is being provided to him. And we're all human. And the Premier made a mistake, and he apologized. And he not only apologized, but he's working. He's even explained to Ontarians how we're going to rectify this. So, for example, with the paid sick leave program, there was a federal paid sick leave program. And that was something that we negotiated with the federal government so that Ontarians could have access to that. What we were really hoping to see in the federal budget last week was some mention of this program that we had negotiated with the federal government. We wanted to see the federal government's commitment to improving this paid sick leave program. And I think it was very disappointing for all of us, including the Premier, when that budget mentioned nothing about paid sick leave. And that is why the Premier and the Minister has now stepped up, and they're working to improve what's there, and they're looking to support Ontarians. And I want to talk about the paid sick leave a little bit as well, because Stephen Del Duca is saying 2 things. So, John, I actually have a question for you, because I think it's important that we are honest and truthful with Ontarians. So on one hand, Stephen Del Duca, your party, is saying that you do not want to see more burdens placed on businesses. And yet, on the other hand, you're introducing a bill in the legislature that essentially forces small businesses who have been ravaged, absolutely ravaged by this pandemic, to foot the bill for paid sick leave. Meanwhile, our government supports paid sick leave, but we want it to be funded provincially so that we are not burdening small businesses anymore. So, John, my question to you is, which measure here do you support? Because it seems like your party is speaking out of both sides of the mouth at the same time.
Goldie.
November for Ottawa South. Answer.
That's a really unfortunate thing to say, because you know that our clear intent was for government to pay for it. And you also know, Goldie, because you're an MPP, that private members' bills cannot direct government funds. Once they're passed, it's up to the government to do that. It's against legislative rules.
John, you're not answering.
Okay. One at a time. One at a time. You okay?
Against
Hold on.
legislative rules. But I want to say one thing.
Okay.
There were 2 paid sick days in Ontario in 2018. If those 2 and Doug Ford and your party took them away. If they'd been here at the beginning of this pandemic, fewer people would have got sick. Fewer families would have lost a loved one. You just said that you're going to fill a gap that you did not acknowledge until 3 or 4 days ago.
Should there not be? If I could just interrupt. Okay. Let me just jump in here, because I want France to address this too. Okay. I get it. A lot of rage directed at Doug Ford, and certainly, I mean, why they ever chose this issue is like their hill to die on, like a Waterloo type thing. You know, whatever. I guess they'll find out the consequences of that come the election. But does not Mr. Trudeau deserve some of the blame for coming up with such a deeply flawed program? The fact is, right now, we have 10 provinces, 8 of them do not have a paid sick day program. 8 of them. Only Quebec and Prince Edward Island have paid sick day programs right now. I mean, is this what we really... Do we need 10 provinces coming out with 10 different paid sick day programs? Would it not have been better from the start to have an efficient and adequate federal program? Isn't this as much Mr. Trudeau's failing as it is Mr. Ford's? France Gelinas, what do you think?
I would say that there's lots of blame to go around, and there are failures at all levels. But at the end of the day, the Premier of Ontario should concentrate his responsibility on the people of Ontario, and that means protecting essential workers. That means bringing in, filling in the gaps in the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit that we knew were there. He denied there was any gap in this for 7 months straight. Every day we've been asking questions about paid sick days.
I know.
And they always refer to the program as being perfect. Now they acknowledge that it is not. And I would say every
But if it's not perfect, whose fault is that?
There's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, I'm not saying that the federal government did a great job. But
well, obviously it did a terrible job. Obviously, it did a terrible job.
Well, but it's still Premier Ford's responsibility to protect the people of Ontario.
Justin Trudeau comes up with a terrible program. Doug Ford gets all the blame. It's great if you're Justin Trudeau. I mean, it's wonderful.
Well, Doug Ford took paid sick days away. We had them. 2 paid sick days. That would have been a place to start. And you know how much money Doug Ford's put into paid sick days?
Yeah, it only took you 14 years and 11 months to come up with that, John.
Okay, well, there'll be enough. There'll be a day of reckoning and accountability for every politician at every level. And we all have to accept that.
Yeah.
But there were paid sick days here. They would have helped people. It could have been something we built on. And Premier Ford, and has put nothing into paid sick days to protect workers. No dollars.
John, you still haven't answered my question.
Dollars.
John, you still haven't answered my question. Do you support small businesses, or do you want small businesses to pay for paid sick leave?
Okay,
which one is it?
Goldie, your Premier said when this seat...
John, answer the question.
All right, let him answer then. Let him answer. Okay, let him answer. All right, come on now.
Goldie.
Finish up, John, because we have other things we got to get into here. We have other things.
Started. Here's what your Premier said. I don't want it. It's a waste of money. Workers are protected enough. Just give me the money. That's what he said. And
I think Goldie's question is,
money.
And we heard from Mike Wood, who I know both of you know. I don't know if France knows Mike Wood, but I certainly know Goldie and John know Mike Wood. We spoke to Mike Wood yesterday here at City News, who said, look, yes, we all want paid sick days for workers, and businesses would love nothing more than be able to offer paid sick days. Small business can't afford paid sick days right now, John.
Well, then you
got a restaurant. Then you can't even open for crying out loud.
The premier has not put any money, or really didn't. He's taking credit for the CSERB that he didn't want, but he's put no money and little to no effort into making it work. And he's been saying it's okay for months and months and months. So for somebody to say now, I'm a champion of this and I'm going to fill this gap, it's like, what?
Okay, we'll stop here. We're going to stop here. We're going to stop here. We're going to stop here, or it'll just go right off the rails. Okay, I want to get the MPP's take on the situation at the airport. Okay, both. It's not just a Premier Ford thing. Premier Legault as well called on the Prime Minister yesterday. It was a joint letter from the two premiers of the two largest provinces in the Dominion to tighten restrictions on air travel. And mere hours later, there was the Prime Minister announcing, what he announced yesterday. Okay. How much of the blame for the predicament we're in Ontario is the Prime Minister's fault? We'll talk about that. Queen's Park Week in Review. Rob Snow Show, City News.
I started, as I said, at Lester's Barber Shop, and it was kind of, it was one of those things that it was just an opportune time for me to get into it, just because he had decided that he was going to retire after the fire, and then the opportunity presented itself that I could open my own shop. And so I went from a 150 square foot space on St. Patrick's Street to a 600 square foot space just on Beechwood to now here, and I'm in a 1,400 square foot space now. And I don't know, it's been an interesting journey because, you think that you're just going to be just you or a really small space, and then all of a sudden, you've got 10 other people working for you. You're in a much bigger space, and even incorporating the boutique. Last March, when all of this started, we closed down a little bit earlier than everybody else, and I'm going to say, being honest, part of it was social pressure. We shut down before everybody else did, and I'm watching all these other salons, just be really responsible and say we don't want to be a part of the process. So we got ahead of it and closed, and then, the week later, the government's like, everybody's shutting down. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. I guess the first step of us, trying to innovate and just keep moving forward was when the salon is closed, right? It's like, what do you do? Our whole industry is based on being with people, cutting their hair, providing a service. You have to be people together to do that. You can't do that remotely at all. So one of the first things that I saw in our industry, what people were trying to do is they were selling their hair products that they had. And luckily, I've had a website that always had a web store in the back. I just never used it. So as soon as I saw that people were doing that, I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to load up all my stuff. And so that worked out really, really well. And then from there, I managed to find a place that was like a wholesale website that allowed you to have net 60 days. So you don't have to, you can order all the stuff. You don't have to prepay any of it. There's free returns, all that. So that made it really easy for me to bring in other products and start trying to sell it. And so I went from selling hair products to shave products to bath and body products to a little bit of clothing and jewelry, and now it's just morphed into this whole, like, I want to make it a whole legit boutique. And by December of last year, I decided that this is a full-fledged thing and we're going to separate it. It's its own company. So it's really finding an opportunity that's there and running with it. So it's been really fun. Our clients are loving it. Our clients that have been here for a long time, they love it.
Pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Okay, we're back. Queen's Park Week in Review. We're going to try and get through everything today. We have Goldie Ghamari from the Progressive Conservatives, John Fraser from the Liberals, France Gelinas from the New Democrats. I always like having, as much as I like having Gilles Bisson on here every week, it's always good to get caught up with France Gelinas and get the view from Sudbury and the Nickel Belt. Okay, This has been and it was certainly a big theme, I know, for the Progressive Conservatives this week, calling on the Premier to tighten restrictions, the Prime Minister to tighten restrictions on international travel. Some steps made in that direction. Yesterday, there was a letter from Premier Ford and Premier Legault calling for such measures. Well, there was just a tweet from Dr. Bogosh, an expert that is very active on Twitter. I believe, is he not on the science table? Is he on the? He's on the science vaccine task force. Vaccine task force. Okay. He just tweeted. He's certain that they have this variant from India in Toronto hospitals now, that he's seeing it in Toronto. We're drowning in international variants. I mean, how do they think they got here? Do the Liberals think these variants get here by in Adam Vancouver and his kayak, or in Justin Trudeau's canoe? How much of the blame falls on the Prime Minister for some of the decisions that he has made, for the predicament that Ontario finds itself in right now? French zone, huh?
Well,
Okay.
I would say for sure there has been failure at the level of the Prime Minister that could have acted more quickly, that could have acted to protect more Ontarians. Without a doubt, this could have been done better. And then once the virus came in and the variants came in, then it was turn of Premier Ford to fail to act quickly to protect the people who ended up spreading it into our community to the point where our ICUs are full. We have to transfer people from Toronto to Sudbury, and our ventilators are full, and people are dying by the dozens every day. There's plenty of blame to go around. The Prime Minister did not act quickly enough, and the Premier did not act at all.
Okay. All right, John. What do you think, John?
No, I'm glad they closed the international travel to those two countries, and it's clear, we could have moved earlier to restrict that travel. I think one of the things that nobody's talking about is, we have tens of thousands of people crossing our southern border every day. Truckers, essential business. It has to happen. And so there's, while we're addressing this issue, which is really important, there's another important issue that we have to recognize that increases our risk, is that there are thousands and thousands of people, way more than come through airports, that come across our border every day. And what do we need to do to mitigate that risk and protect ourselves? You read that North Dakota was vaccinating truckers for Manitobans.
Yep.
We need to look at migrant workers, make sure we protect them, because that protects ourselves. So I think we have to make sure that we take public health measures quickly, so that when we get these variants, when these things start to happen, we can control.
Right, but how many variants have to come into this country from how many different parts of the world before a light comes on at Rideau Cottage, and somebody says, maybe I should do something about that?
Rob, one thing people aren't talking about is variants don't just occur in other countries. They occur as a natural evolution of the disease. And the more the disease spreads, the more likely it is to evolve. So it's not like Canada is immune from the virus evolving here. So nobody thinks about that. What the thing is we have to try to stop it from coming in. We know we can't prevent all of it. And when we get it here, we got to make sure we take those measures that actually slow the transmission of whatever variant it is.
Okay. All right, Goldie. Go ahead, Goldie. What do you think?
So a couple of things. First of all, John, with your way of thinking, I think that's a little dangerous to think that way, because the reason that it's called the Indian variant, or the Brazilian variant, or whatever
UK
variant you want to call it, it's because they have traced it back to that country. So when it's called the Indian variant, that's because it is from India, that is scientifically proven. So that's first of all. Second of all, Prime Minister Trudeau had two jobs. Job number one, secure vaccines. Job number two, protect the borders. He failed at both. It's unfortunate, because this is putting all of Canada in this situation. This isn't just an Ontario problem. COVID is something that all provinces are dealing with. And the fact that he has now closed or announced that they're not allowing flights from India for the next 30 days, that doesn't even go far enough, because that's not stopping anyone from flying from India to another country, having a layover, and then coming in. So these half-handed measures, they're not going far enough. And we as a province, there is only so much that we can do. And so what people don't realize, and what the opposition parties don't realize is that instead of working together to try to get this message across to the federal government that you have two jobs and we need your support on two things. Number one is vaccines. Number two is protecting Canadians. They have not performed very well.
Gotcha. No. That's it. Everybody's had their say on that. I want to do one more thing. We have 2 minutes. Okay. Everybody remembers a few weeks ago. Well, it was maybe a different cast of characters, but we had a lot to say about nails on a chalkboard. Okay. Doug Ford said, Andrea Horwath, you sound like nails on a chalkboard. Well, Andrea Horwath said this week. Roll tape, David. Go ahead. Okay.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how you regain trust from that. The Premier's got blood on his hands. I know it's a harsh thing to say, but that's exactly what's happening in our province, and I take no pleasure in saying it. I am as horrified as everyone.
Blood on his hands. Really? He has blood on his hands. Gelinas, is that any way for a public official to talk about another public official? He has blood on his hands. Come on, that's over the top, France. She should apologize for that.
I can tell you that if you talk to the workers that are now in ICU and on ventilator in Toronto that are being flown to Sudbury, their families are being told he has a 5 to 7% chance of survival. They live in Toronto. Their loved one is in Sudbury. They don't have a car. There's a 400 kilometers lapse between the two. Those people are going through a really tough time.
Of course, we're all going through a tough time.
Many precarious workers are in our ICUs right now, are dying every day.
We understand this, but is that over-the-top criticism to say that the Premier has blood on his hands? He has blood on his hands. Come on.
If they had paid sick days, the science table...
All right, I'm not going to get anything out of France on that. It's not biting on that. John, blood on his hands. Come on, John, blood on his hands?
It's not language that I would use. And the leader of the opposition was obviously saying what she felt.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.